Good evening. My name is Marilyn Donahue. I'd like to welcome you to a brief synopsis of the Finance Committee meeting, February 13th. Public is always welcome to attend our meetings. We do have the opportunity for citizens' participation during the meeting. We would love to have more visitors attend. If you prefer, you can reach out to any of us. The names of the committee are on the town website, and our email addresses should be available there as well. This evening we had a little festive occasion. Our chairwoman is suffering ill effects from chemotherapy. So to brighten her day, we all wore hats, and two of the members actually shaved their heads. I was not willing to do that part of it, but I did wear a hat. We had a joint meeting with the school committee this evening, which takes up probably the first 45 minutes of the recording. The school committee came to us to present possible solutions that they have to the deficit between what the school superintendent believes are the needs for the school committee, for the school administration budget, versus what the town administrator had allocated in his budget. We've discussed, we're all aware of the fact that there is not enough money to go around on the school side or on the town side. We had some very painful decisions to make. The school committee was very forthcoming with their solutions, their suggestions, and they left our meeting to go over and have their own meeting to see how they're going to proceed with this. We also discussed the increase in the Upper Cape Regional Vocational Technical budget, which is over $200,000 more than was originally projected in our budget. This is a line item that gets added to the administrator's budget to cover the cost of the Wareham students that are attending. This is a number that is just given to us. We participate in the Upper Cape Regional District with 4 other towns: Bourne, Wareham, Sandwich, Falmouth, and Marion. Our share per student, I guess, is a little technical to figure out how they come up with that number, but the reality is that if 3 of the 5 participating towns vote in favor of that budget, we really have no say. We're forced to pay that. And I believe last year's budget, town meeting did not vote in favor of the Upper Cape budget number. And in fact, we were forced to pay that because all of the other towns participating voted in favor of that. So it's a real concern. We are working at all levels. We are encouraging the school superintendent to talk to the superintendent of Upper Cape, the school committee, and the finance committee will reach out to see if there's any kind of consensus that we can come to bring that number down. One of the other issues that we discussed or agreed to discuss further is the Sewer Enterprise Fund, the Water Pollution Control Facility Enterprise Fund. At last week's meeting, we had the state municipal guidelines as to how an enterprise fund is supposed to be run. We understand that ours is not working exactly the way it is supposed to be. We know that we need to have more expertise and more hands-on with that, so we are going to schedule a workshop with the town administrator. We're also looking in this year's budget to include money for a bookkeeper, financial person within the enterprise fund itself to ensure that what needs to be done properly for enterprise accounting really does happen. So that date will be forthcoming when we can do that. One of the other items that we also talked about, and I think it's very important for people to understand this upcoming, is a reorganization within the town finance departments. Currently, we have an acting town accountant, and we are advertising for the position of an accountant. And there's some concern on the committee that we're not looking for a higher level of education from this person. We feel it more critical that we have someone who is hands-on with the knowledge of our technology, our system, and really understands the specifics of municipal accounting. Municipal accounting is not the same as private accounting, as financial, as it works in the business world. Municipal accounting is government accounting. It's a very specific field. We need someone who is well versed in that. But in order to not have if we don't have the qualifications in the accounting department, we're looking to fulfill a position of finance director who would actually oversee the town accountant, the tax collector, and the assessing department. It's a model that appears to work well in other towns. We think it makes a lot of sense for us to do it. It was presented by the town administrator to the Board of Selectmen, I believe. He'd run it by us, so we think that is something critical to look at. And we also talked finally at the budget book that we have and the difficult decisions that we're going to make and how we're going to do it. And a lot of what we talked about is the need to work together, which we always hear a lot about too, but exactly how it should run. We need guidance from the Board of Selectmen. We need more feel from the town administrator, the numbers that he's getting from the state level and state aid. And we need to roll up our sleeves and do some hard work to figure out where we're going to make cuts. I wish there were more good news to give. I think you'll hear, if you listen to the rest of this tape, a lot of frustration, but you'll hear a lot of passion and a lot of caring. And if anyone has any solutions and more positive ideas, again, we would love to hear them. I hope that we have identified all the problems that we've had. I'm frankly getting a little bit frustrated hearing about more and more problems without hearing solutions. But it's time to start to look for those solutions. Thank you.
To order. Before we start the meeting, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Heath, the assistant. I just want to thank everyone for their love and support. I can't tell you how special it was to me. It lifts one's heart right up to receive the love and support that I receive from you all. And thank you so very, very much. And let's move on with the meeting and let's kick some butt and get these schools what they need. Go ahead, Mr. Heath.
Oh, do I get the gavel?
I love your hair.
I get the gavel, huh?
Yeah, Mr. Well,
The
Mr.
secretary. Secretary, please take the roll.
Oh, sorry, let me put my hat back on. Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Chairman Brock, Mr. Heath, Mr. Trudell, Mrs. Donahue, Mr. Gray, and Mr. Worthing, and myself are here. Present.
Mr. Heath, would you mind if we open the school committee meeting?
Yes, I was just about to do that.
Thank you very much. We'll open the school committee meeting. We have a quorum and expect to have Mr. Franz join us shortly, and thank you for the invitation.
You're most welcome. Before I go into the next item on the agenda, I'd like to ask Mrs. Donahue asked for a minute.
I did, as a matter of fact, but you're not supposed to get it to choke up, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Not too late.
Actually, you get a special hat.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, well.
Before I progress on, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, 2 weeks ago you said that you thought that maybe we should resign, and we told you then that we were going to support you. This is really the best way we thought we could do it. One of our members put a little note out to some of the friends in town, and they wanted to be part of it. We asked them to come. And this is probably the largest number of people we've ever had at our finance meetings in the entire 3 years that I've been here. And we sort of surprised the school committee.
Yeah.
Hey, they're quick.
They
They're all under what they have.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is to go into executive session of the school committee to discuss budget matters related to the fiscal year budget and staffing levels. So Mr. Sweat has advised me that he would prefer that we not go into executive session, that he's prepared to answer basically all of our questions in open session. The caution that has to be said here is that anything related to labor cannot relate to individuals or specific positions. Am I correct in that? All right, we can't ask for our general staffing levels. We can ask all the things that I know are on our mind. All right, please, if you may have to come back and say, hold on a second. I don't want to answer that without counsel here. but he did say that he was willing to answer a lot of the questions. I know you guys have no questions to ask at all, right? He can go off. We're also under a time constraint. They have a 7 o'clock meeting, so we have to be done basically within half an hour, so we have to give them time. Anyone else want to start off on this, or I'm supposed to keep going? I'm doing fine. Our biggest concern is that the last 3 years, the budget's been squeezed, okay? And as far as our even consideration has been concerned, some of us were able to see more, most of the community members were able to see less. We've been to your session that was held earlier in January, and as usual, the staff did a fabulous job. They put all the facts on the table. We congratulate them for, I think, a very objective meeting that they had with us. We didn't hear a lot of subjective thought. We didn't hear a lot of, shall we say, pleas. We didn't hear any emotion. What we heard was a fair evaluation of what was happening within the school system and what the current year's budget was going to mean for them. We also understood that your needs were far greater than what the town administrators had placed before you. We've heard some discussions about revenue sharing, or this is what the town gets, this is what the school gets. We're $2 million short. I don't think anybody doubts that number. All right, not necessarily the schools, but in full, and actually not some of ours. And we also just recently heard that evidently Upper Cape has come back and said, well, we know we asked for a lot of money, but we want another $239,000. So that puts us even as a town even deeper in the hole. All right, so our general question is obviously something's going to have to happen on the school side before we go into that final deliberation where we're trying to put our, shall we say, our approval on what has come to us as budget, or our recommendation to the town in the budget. A number of our people had some questions. And probably the biggest question we have is, last year the conversation was an override to try to retain staff. It didn't pass. We did have to cut staff. Can you tell us what are the alternatives that you have? That would probably be the first thing. What are the alternatives? I'm not asking you for decisions, and I'm not asking you for the specifics, but we would like to know, what does this mean to you? What are your alternatives?
Let me first defer to our superintendent, but with the caveat that I'm sure all three of us could answer that somewhat differently. But the superintendent has an advisory committee made up of 2 members of the school committee. They have recently met, so I think it's best to let the superintendent ask her, and then presumably that will reflect what Mike feels because he's on the advisory committee, but he can speak for himself, and then Rhonda and myself can add whatever color or flavor or editing we so choose.
Here, we're cutting directors of curriculum, finance,
Yes,
and student services.
correct.
I don't know what that.
Student Services deals with special education, Title IX, support programs, our RTI program. I would be hoping that the assistant superintendent would pick up oversight over curriculum and the student services. We do have somebody who is called a supervisor of special ed, who would have an enhanced role, would have to do more with special ed than she currently does. And I would hope that the finance role, and again, I don't know, there has been very preliminary conversation, perhaps about sharing a CFO position with the town and to do a combined finance position so that we're did the reports for both the town and the school, oversaw the financial health of both the town and the school.
That's very preliminary, is my understanding.
It
Maybe down the
is,
road.
it is, well, it's preliminary, except we have an opening, even without eliminating the position, I have somebody retiring in the position.
Which you did.
There's an opening here in town, that there is, so I included in my savings, instead of taking the full director's salary, I put in approximately half of that to put towards that CFO position.
All right, my understanding is that there is in the town budget already from the town administrator $25,000 stipend for a financial director, which I think we're almost talking the same thing here.
I believe so, yes.
Mr. McDonald?
My biggest concern, and I understand about the finances, you can combine some of those, and I'm not real clear on the student services because, well, my biggest one is the curriculum director, because one of the problems we have, I think, in our school systems, and I'm not a school committee chair or member, but is our curriculum.
If we may, Larry, remember what I said when we started, we're not supposed to deal with specific positions, so.
Well, that's my concern. I guess what I'm getting at is will a assistant superintendent be able to deal with that on some level?
When you know where your holes are, when you go to hire somebody, you look for people that have strength in that area.
I have a question on the special services side as a function. My understanding that a good deal of that was also to get grants, a large number of grants, to monitor the grants and ensure that the monies were spent and accounted for properly. Am I wrong in that assumption, or?
Both directors go after grants, manage grants. The oversight came from the director of finance. That combined CFO, so to speak, or budget, whatever we're gonna call that person, would then have to have the oversight over that through other people who actually implement them as currently. I mean, there are other ways of doing it. So for instance, Title I currently is under one of our directors who currently runs that grant totally. In another earlier administration, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, it was run by a stipended position. There was somebody who was a teacher and then got a stipend of X number of hours that came out of the grant to run the grant. So there are other ways of doing this. There's more than one model. I bring this to you as, you know, out of the box kind of thinking. You know, I kind of, you know, it is a extreme way of resolving this budget issue. But I felt if we were gonna come here and say to you, you need to find $700,000 so we don't decimate classrooms and have 35 children in a classroom, then I needed to do my part.
All right, so it's one of the alternatives, Mr. Scott.
I wanted to give Mike and Rhonda the ability to comment
Feel free.
on what our superintendent said. Mike, did you have anything that you wanted to say in support of, and, or even against?
No, as you know, Kenny and I are on the advisory committee, and we were both impressed. We were both, like he used the word out of the box thinking. It's extreme, it's sobering, it's a lot of things, but it's, I mean, you gotta make amendments, you know, you gotta, it's look for opportunities, and he's done a better than expected job, in my opinion.
Rhonda?
I think that from the central administration, I don't know what impact we're going to see until after, you know, if these are approved, what impact that will actually have in the district. I mean, there are different districts around the Commonwealth as well as the country that do it many different ways, and a lot of it does look like a dean kind of model, an instructional leader, or not an instructional leader, but a dean model where, you know, people at the school level then step up to do things like curriculum and things like that. But, you know, this is the model that was chosen here. So again, we just won't know if these cuts are made until later on. The biggest one that I have the concern about, and it's the first time that I am hearing it, and this is something that we'll have to debate as a committee, is the instructional leaders. It's a proven program, and with our district and the needs that we have with the students there are so many pieces that, background and information that show that program works. And to have it in there and then all of a sudden rip it out before it has any opportunity to really fly is a concern to me. But again, that's something that we'll have to debate as a committee as we go through and look at this budget again.
Mrs. Donovan? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Sweat. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
That's okay, I wanted to.
Okay. Can I go first? Do you want to comment on what?
I actually want to comment on
Sorry.
what Mrs. Bacon said, because I feel very strongly, first of all, I'd like to make the point very clearly of what we all understand here, but I want to make sure we are on the same board. It sounds very simplistic to say you're going to cut 3 positions and replace it by 1 person. We would all say, well, duh, why didn't you do that before? What we need to understand is there's a significant amount of services being lost by doing that. It's being reapportioned, it's being reallocated. That will be a shuffle, and that will be somebody's job to figure out how, because that work still needs to get done. But I very strongly want to reinforce what Mrs. Bacon said with regard to instructional leaders. One of the things that we've done with other municipal departments as we've been going through this budget is to say, what isn't being done? What is being missed? What are we planning at? What could we do with more money? Not that we have more money. The ultimate goal is to get better educated students, better educated teachers, and to move forward. And I think that was a huge program. It was a process. We're getting to the point that it's going to show results, and to cut it now just seems to be counterproductive.
Mr. Sweat, you don't have to respond to
I wasn't
the
gonna
comments we have.
I was going to respond to Marilyn.
You have to talk in general.
I was just going to continue my turn, so to speak.
Yes, okay.
I suspect Ken may want to get his thoughts together, but we basically were responding to what Barry had recommended to your advisory committee about potential out-of-the-box cuts. So if you can respond after me, or would you like to go now? Okay. First, I'll comment on the reorganization, and I acknowledge your point, Marilyn, about the work still needs to get done. The truth of the matter is that 10 years ago, we were about 3,500 students. For fiscal year 2014, we're projecting mid-2,800s. That's a dramatic loss of students. Now, it would be actually a very appropriate discussion to talk about why students are leaving, but that's not the point I want to make for this purpose. For this purpose is, at a certain point, what you think are fixed costs have to become variable costs. They just have to. And so if we fail to respond by looking at the central office and other positions that are, quote, overhead, so to speak, and not classroom positions, we would be irresponsible. So I applaud the superintendent for this sort of thing. I do agree, as he has acknowledged, and I'm sure he was thinking of that as he chose to name the position assistant superintendent. This is going to have to be a special person, not only special in terms of capability of filling in for the curriculum and instruction, but also to support in the SPED area. A legitimate person to aspire to be superintendent. The title was not without significance. It means we're trying to groom an internal candidate who would compete with others if the existing superintendent ever left. So it's a critical position, and it would have to be able to do all of those functions, or at least figure out a way to get the support staff along with him or herself to do all those functions. So I think the reorganization, as much as it will require significant productivity on the part of all concerned, enhanced productivity, I should say, I think it has to be looked at. The instructional leaders, probably everybody at this table, and certainly, and maybe even everybody in this room, knows that these positions are something that I have fought for literally years. In my mind, there is no point in doing something if you're not going to do it well. I'm going to repeat that. Literally, this comes down to, there's no point in pretending to be an educational system, but doing a half-assed job. And when you have no accountability, when you aren't giving classroom teachers the kind of support necessary so they know whether they're doing a good job or not, especially for the young ones, then you're not going to get a good product. Taking away these instructional leaders is taking away the most basic way that we have created some accountability in this system. And that's critical if we want to continue to improve the educational product. It's just critical, to the point where we might as well just admit that we've given up if we eliminate these positions, because we will be like every other district, most other districts, frankly, probably across the country, because they don't have the kind of accountability and support that these positions provide. In my roaming around, both literally and figuratively, around Massachusetts, it is very clear to me that the new regulations, the new laws involving the evaluation of teachers in this state is in all likelihood going to, generally speaking, fail. Why? Because you can't just simply create forms, pass laws, and poof, something's going to happen. You have to have the people in place to actually make a meaningful evaluation. And if you have 50 direct reports, you don't have a meaningful evaluation. As it is, these instructional leaders have 15, 16, 17, 18. That's plenty for those of you who understand supervision and management. It's really hard. Now, admittedly, not every one of them is getting a full summative evaluation every year, but at least half of them are, and sometimes more, correct? The bottom line is, these instructional leaders are critical to improving the quality of the education that goes on in the school system. And so I can never, ever vote to remove them. I may very well get outvoted, and I may very well not have the money to do it, but I would literally rather see class sizes rise than remove these positions, because once again, if you don't know what's going on in the classroom, there's no point in pretending you've got a system that actually can assure the quality of the instruction for the children of Wareham. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any other comments?
Where does the 279,000 or whatever the upper cape is looking for show? In your budget or the town budget?
That will show on the town budget.
On the town budget. Okay. And my favorite school buses is you can't save a penny on that.
No, absolutely not.
Not out of the 1.45 that's in the budget. That's correct. Can I make a comment on the upper cape?
Yes.
I did a little, not surprisingly, calculation. For the current year's budget, the cost per student by just simply taking, for Wareham, by simply taking the number of students we have today and dividing it by the allocation, which for this year was $2.595 million, came out to, now this is not all they spend because for a variety of reasons, they get state aid too, came out for Wareham to be $11,536 per student. Simply number of students as the denominator and how much it shows up on our budget, $11,536. I'm doing it per student because that's the only significant, appropriate way to do it, because next year they're expecting 23 more students. That's what the numbers are based on. If you take that new number that they've just given us of 3,097,000 and divide it by the new number of students, which is 23 more, that is an 8.3% increase on a per student basis. Ladies and gentlemen, I would take half that. I'd take a quarter of that. We cannot afford, no matter how high a quality, and this is not about the quality of the work that they do over there. This is just unaffordable. And I urge you to contact the finance committees of the other 4 towns that are involved in this, urge you to get them to say enough is enough is enough. 8.3% is unaffordable. Sorry, Tom.
Is there any school system in the universe of school systems that makes money through the use of the school facilities out of season? Is there a way to use these facilities in any way to generate income?
We do.
Does anybody do it?
Well, we do.
Okay.
We don't make a lot of money at it, and I couldn't tell you the exact dollar, but I know where it goes. Recently, I found that we had a 2,000-gallon tank at Wareham High School put in 23 years ago, and the EPA said needed to be tested, and it was gonna fail, and you have to take it out. I didn't have that in my budget, so that $40,000 drained every penny I had in that Fields and Grounds account. But that's where the money goes. It goes back into Fields and Grounds, into buildings, when we get it. So, for instance, the local church runs, St. Patrick's runs summer school for a week at Wareham High School. There is a charge, that goes into that account. So, you know, we do try to do that.
Is there any school system or any place that is doing it in a remarkable way in terms of the amount of revenue being generated? I'm not looking for our ideas, I'm looking for something in
I actually heard one today.
Keokuk, Iowa or something.
I actually heard one today, which is, there was a school system in New Jersey that had such an extraordinary technology base, servers, et cetera, that they actually leased out a portion of their technology capability and produced a fair amount of revenue. But as you can imagine, it took a fair amount of capital investment in order to create that technology base.
It's not a this year solution.
Well, it's not only not a this year's solution, you'd actually have to convince the taxpayers that they should spend all that capital to create something that people would then use. So it's really going in entrepreneurial, and the last thing I think we want to be doing, asking our superintendent, either present or future, is to become, entrepreneurial, to that extent. That's way beyond the capacity of most superintendents.
Can I say one thing?
Sorry.
Yes, please.
There's another example that schools are doing right now, and one is close to us, which is Nauset down in Eastham, down in the Cape. And what they did is they worked with their local Comcast, and Comcast is actually renting out the top floor of their library. And they have an office out of there, and they're providing different services and things like that. There are things that we can do around maybe taking, we don't have a shop, but, having Harley Davidson come in, and it could be the Harley Davidson shop. But the thing is, so there are, I think, a lot of creative ways. There's right, so I'm a fundraiser, so sponsorship, a capital campaign, all of that. But again, yes, everybody needs more resources for it. It is just about making that a priority and doing it. And when right now, where we are, which is kind of just surviving, and I'll let the administration speak to that, but I think that they're going down their priority list, and right now, having one person just focus on an entrepreneurial spirit, or a capital campaign, or actually being a fundraiser, that position is just not there, but.
Mr. Trudell, did you want
Yes, please. I've listened to what you said. I just want you to know I didn't make your presentation this year. I was out of town, but I want you to know that last year's presentation, the depression from that still carries on into this year, so no sense of getting more depressed. But I'm hearing you tell me that you begin to close in on people that write grants, monitor them, closing in on instruction leaders. You begin to eat your lunch. And there's no other way to put it. It's getting more desperate as it goes on. I didn't hear you talk about building maintenance, and capital was one of my things. Well, the point that I make about that is we had Mark Gifford come in during our budget hearings, and Mark sat down and gave us a sheet and said, this is what I cannot do. And he told us he couldn't run certain machines because he doesn't have staffing to cover it. He has a machine but doesn't have the staffing to cover it. He's not able to take care of certain building maintenance requirements because he does not have the staffing to do it. He told us in straight on terms how his lack of funding is destroying or allowing to deteriorate the facilities here in town. It was quite impressive, because if you look at this and you say, I have a big capital budget and I'm not able to get to it, here's the guy that does most of the work on it, and he says, I can't do this because I don't have the resources, either in personnel or funds. I want to mention this because I'm a visual person. Somebody puts something like that in front of me and says, this is going to be the result of what happens when I can no longer have the 3 directors. And this is what has to happen here. When I don't have the instruction leaders, this is the fallout that comes with this. Because you're gonna be presenting this to the town, and I'm hoping that you're gonna be able to make your case, but the one that really struck me was, this is what I can't do, because I don't have anything to do with it. I'm done.
If I may, last year, when we went through this long discussion about the budget, and we came up with ideas of going to the override and debt exclusions and so forth, we said at that time, and it's not quite as direct as saying, I can't run this piece of machinery, but what we said to you is, it was the beginning of a death spiral. Okay? Mr. Sweat alluded to it about this year our numbers going down by about 100 students. The reason that they left was because we talked about having no textbooks. Town didn't buy the textbooks. We weren't going to be able to fix the high school roof. So the people who thought long and hard said, the most important thing to me is my child, and therefore I'm going to make a decision and vote with my feet.
Precisely.
More of that is going to happen when you keep cutting and cutting and cutting. So we're already there. The question is, can we stop the bleeding? And can we continue to build and have a quality product? Because we all know, no matter what the budget is, we'll open the doors and we will do our best, because that's what we do by our nature. But will there things that will not be done as well? Absolutely. You put 30+ children in a classroom, they will not get the same education as if they had 20. So I can't put it in concrete ways, but I can say that we are endangering the educational lives of our children and our community. Because as the schools go, so do our property values and who will move into town, and so on and so on. So we've taken it on the chin. I've showed in that presentation, we've cut 24 people in the last 2 years. I used to have somebody who was my Fields and Grounds director who made the calls about the snowstorms and so forth. Gone. We used to have somebody in charge of food services. Gone. We had a technology director. Gone. So we all wear more than one hat, and sometimes you don't do as well when you're wearing 5 hats instead of 1. That's unpleasant to say, but I'm in a position that I can say it.
And should.
In more general terms, the more conservative people, with respect to politically conservative people, will say, and I can understand why they would say it, public schools should compete. How many times have we heard that, right? Compete with parochials, compete with charters, compete with other schools. School choice is a form of competition. Compete with Upper Cape. We can't compete with this level of resources. We can't. We are working with one hand tied behind our back. And it's worse than that. because as with any distribution of people, there are those parents that care a great deal, and there are those parents that don't care much at all, and then the vast majority care somewhat. Well, guess which kids leave to go to other schools? The parents that care a lot. And they tend to be kids parents that value education more, the kids are honor roll kids, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we take all comers, no matter what. Upper Cape doesn't take all comers. Charter schools, don't get me started on charter schools. They counsel out the kids they don't want. So, at least allow us to compete is what I'm asking. Because this level of resources doesn't do it.
Mrs. Donahue, you have to start to wrap this up because they have a meeting.
Okay, and I just one quick question that technology's been mentioned several times, competition's been mentioned several times. How are our kids going to compete without technology? Why are we buying books that are already outdated by the time they get in the hands of the students? Why aren't we using better technology, some form of technology, online supported programs, tablet access? We know that a good chunk of the students in the system don't have access to technology at home. So it becomes even more critical that they get it in the school system. And it pains me greatly to talk negatively about books because I do have an e-reader and I still read the written word. But that's not what our kids need. So, why?
Is it okay if I respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
So we have a curriculum and technology subcommittee that I'm on, and it was changed this year, maybe last year, to be curriculum and technology. The biggest issue that we have here, it goes back to what Jeff was saying about the capital investment in it. Unfortunately, having the devices and investing in that, yes, that's one cost, but the real cost has to do with just building up the infrastructure. We don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the wraparound that's needed to be able to support that technology in turn. So the plan right now, and actually, and this is where Barry was talking about that if we can do this bonding, the $392,000 is getting us, I don't know, a quarter of the way, halfway there, three-fourths, halfway there. So that's getting us halfway there, so then we can do exactly what you're doing. But again, that's what we have to do first. I share your frustration.
We'd rather go twice as much and get it all done, so we don't fall further behind. We're gonna be back here again next year. Because we haven't discussed the 16.13 staff cuts.
Let us also not forget that the financing of the 392 is not in the town's budget.
That's right.
Okay, so that's something that we'd have to hear from the town administrator. Does anyone else have any?
No, I also want to point out too, last year, when they tried to increase with the debt exclusions and the override, they got smacked back that way. My problem is, and because I deal with markets on a daily basis, I like to look at certain indicators, and that tells me where we're going. And one of them, and I know it may not be the most popular one, is free lunches. And if you look at the increase in the number of students in free lunches over the last few years, it's increasing that way. And to me, that's an indicator that what you're saying is that the parents that care the most are probably moving away, and some of the other things that are going on with that. The other thing is, we had a copy of the Chapter 70 distribution. This is not a pleasant read, and it sounds to me like, and you've talked about this before, that somewhere along the line, there's gonna have to be some changes made on the state level to get more money to us. If we had the extra 2% increase, we wouldn't be having this discussion at this point, I don't think, or maybe 4% increase. So that's an eye opener too as well, but I don't see an answer long-term at this point. I just don't. There's so many battles that have to be won to get us to the point where we're moving in the right direction, and I'm just not seeing a lot of answers.
I do want to make a quick comment because I think it was Tom who asked about transportation. One of the things that the superintendent will be doing tonight is recommending a significant, I guess you'd call it, significant change in the way we transport children. That will be necessary to live within the 1.45. So it's not that we're sitting on our heels with respect to transportation, but we're not gonna be able to save any money. We're gonna have to do things just to get down to that number.
What would it take you to get to be 100% bandwidth? How much? You got 392,000 for books and technology. And you mentioned that gets you halfway in terms of the bandwidth you need to be.
I don't know the answer to that question.
There's 36, let's say there's $37,000 for bandwidth. If that was doubled, that would get us all the way as far as having all the nodes so that we were completely wireless on all the buildings.
I don't care who you, what you do to your head count. I would make that a #1 priority to get in position to get ready for the changes that are coming down the pike in terms of how we educate our kids. And the other thing is, I would go along with you and hang on to whatever you can with these assistants, instructional assistants.
Mike, real quick.
I'm glad you had us here today to answer some questions. But I think there's a general sense of inequity, I guess, with us and what's being requested with Upper Cape. And I was wondering if you considered bringing in the Wareham representatives from that school committee to this board to answer some questions.
In the past, we've had the superintendent come in, and this year, we have the email address of one of the representatives. We contacted them, we're gonna ask them to come in. And we wanna speak to them all about this if we may. And I hope to do that within the next couple of meetings. I have to see what their schedules are. Unfortunately, the storm delayed me a little bit. We didn't have any internet for 4 days at it. Finding it quickly.
Just a quick question to Darren. Do you communicate with the, our local, citizens who sit on the Upper Cape, school committee?
No, I communicate with the superintendent at Upper Cape, but not with the school committee members. I have talked to them before, but not on a regular basis. No.
Yeah, the one thing that I'd say, I think that it's pretty much any group, committee that needs to talk to the counterpart in that community. So school committee needs to talk to the school committee in each one of those towns, town administrator needs to talk to town, I think it's gotta come from all sides, everyone reaching out to those communities and saying, we have to vote this down this year. And I believe.
I guess my question was, I don't know who our reps are and how many we have
Ken
to
Pierce.
sit to.
There are two.
Do they have any sense of this town's feelings as to what is going on?
We could only get that from them. I don't want to go secondhand on that.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
And
have
they
them.
did.
I didn't
We're
know
gonna
there
have,
was
we're
any
gonna have them
open
in
rapport
if we
between
can.
us.
Can I summarize so they're able to go?
Can I
And
just
I want
ask
to throw
for
a couple of
capital?
red flags, and everybody's talked but me, so I'm gonna step in the last 5 minutes. All right, so what I consider to be budgetary dangers in this whole, what we've heard today. All right, one is, just saying, we're gonna take all increases, we're gonna level fund them. That's $139K saving. Two things involved in that. Number one, we're denying that there's any inflation. Number two, we're also denying the fact that last year we made those same types of cuts. So we're not only going backwards because of the inflation, we're going back, and there's a whole bunch of things that we probably should have gone up this year just to catch up. So that's one of the dangers in that area. The 6 retiring teachers are replacing them with younger people. Well, if you're going to replace them with younger people, they're going to come into the classroom with less ability to instruct the class, less know-how and experience. Right? That's why we're supposed to have instructional leaders. And that's the first thing we're doing. We're cutting out the instructional leaders. So there's 6 people coming in. We got to keep our fingers crossed that they're more prepared than a number of teachers have been in the past. So I'm very concerned about on that side. The bonding of the books and the infrastructure, that has to go to town meeting. All right? And as Larry Anthony pointed out, that has already been rejected once. We're not quite sure what's going to happen. We're going to have to try it. But the biggest concern I have is if it fails again, what does that mean? All right? Because there are definitely some requirements that are sitting there on the state and federal levels. The reorganization of the central offices, yeah, we're going to take it, we're going to cut it down, we're going to bring some superhero in, etc. I don't care how superhero anyone is, there's a learning curve. And no matter how good they are, we're going to pay a price over the next year for that learning curve. We're going to pay too little because we're going to be in a situation where we're going to have to find a new superintendent, right? And we're gonna have to find an assistant superintendent. And they're both gonna have to go through a learning curve, both within the educational system and within the town as well, right? So don't expect those people to be able to do anywhere near what the current four are, all right? And that's a concern we have to have, and that may, in the end, wind up costing us even more money. We gotta be very careful with it. On that one, I hope you, I know you realize all these things. The 16 staff members, I sure would like to know, you presented us a fabulous set of charts on class sizes. And I think everybody needs to know what the impact would be if we have to limit those 16 positions. Now, the 239 additional coming in, Mr. Camerano.
There's my buddy.
Like a haircut, sir. Like a
There you
haircut.
go. Now I can pull mine off.
16, you know, if we cut 16, it's important to know those cuts. What's it gonna mean for the classes? What levels will those cuts be at? And, you know, is it all teachers or not teachers? And the other side too is, you know, you've been accused in the past of, well, I always say we're gonna take out the teachers, take out, and then when you save some, it's like, well, you weren't telling us the truth. Well, no, I always commend you for the fact that you're able to find some additional money or make some other cuts, all right? That's the dangers of some of what I see here. The 700, well, the 700 we might have hoped to get you is out of the town side has been increased already to 900 because of what's happening with the Upper Cape. And from what I'm hearing from, as we talk about the town side, there doesn't appear to be any money there. So that scares me even more about these 16 positions.
Full disclosure,
Yes, sir.
we need to go.
Yes.
But full disclosure, at a legislative breakfast that I went to, we were told that the Chapter 70 numbers produced by the governor are dead on arrival.
Down.
Dead on arrival is down.
So they can give you the 8,000.
Thank you for having us.
I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We'll be staying the meeting until we reconvene.
Y'all want to take a break? Frank, you can take a break.
Yes, let's take a 5-minute break. Please.
Okay, let them have, Sandy. I'll let my big fella. I need to change this.
All right, if I may, I would like to round of recess. I'd like to jump to new business. The Community Preservation Committee has asked if they could have a couple of minutes of our time. Could you guys see this was unexpected. I apologize. But I thought it was important enough tonight. I'll explain that too.
Well,
Hey, I like that.
That's a mini
I want
pearl.
to trade? You want to trade? No, I love this, really.
It's a walking garden.
That's what it is, it's a walking garden. It is, it's beautiful, you guys.
well, we just wanted to come in and tell you that we loved you.
Thank you so much.
You know that. So,
Thank you, it's been very lifting.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
we'll see you soon.
And what's under your peak hat?
Not a thing.
John.
We decided to come as Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Rick and Frank.
And whatever it takes.
You like that, baby?
Oh, that's cool.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is citizen participation. Citizens who would like to make a comment before we head to the rest of the agenda. None. Seeing none, let's go to the business. Now, listed a number of items that we sort of chatted about a little bit last week. All right, but items that I think we're going to have to give great attention to when we go through on the budget side. The first being the police budget. We heard we're down 5 people right now. 2 are on some form of leave. 3 have actually retired. We also heard that, you know, if they move patrolmen up to sergeants, you know, we're going to have the whole situation of we need 5 new people to be trained, or we need to find transfers. So my impression in listening to what they were saying the other day is, I don't know that all that's built in, especially since if you're looking at the potential 5 people not being available because they're at the academy, which is gonna make that whole overtime issue that much tougher.
The academy is 21 weeks when they run.
Yes, it's 9 months basically. And then also remember that when we bring 5 new people on, that requires overtime as well. Because those officers cannot just come out of the academy and go on the street on their own. It's also, go ahead.
How does it work with, and the other issue from the police car standpoint, is do we have enough cars to cover the officers?
Well, that was another point I was about to bring up.
Well, I'm so sorry, I stole
On
your thunder, once again.
top of the fact, and it's my understanding that, repeatedly, the capital plan, the capital committee has pressed town officials about the generator at the police department.
The what?
The generator, the backup generator at the police department. Right? And it's my understanding it failed in the first few hours. Right?
Really, this storm and failed?
It failed.
Is this the, I'm sorry, is this the old one that was?
This was the one that was in there, that they asked for the 40,000, and we all supported, right? Didn't get funded for one reason or another, but, and then it was, well, we don't need it, right? What we have will work, okay? And then it's failed. So that's gonna be one of the first things I think we're gonna hear when it comes to the warrant again, and also we're gonna hear about we have to have a generator, or there'll be some other kind of, something's gonna come out of that. It's the only thing I can say on that one. We know something has to come out, and the radios are gonna become a big issue now, so here we go. We're gonna start going around and around again. Okay? Mr. Slade is sitting back there wanted to say something. Do you want to let him say something?
Certainly.
Just quickly, because
Real
sticking
quick,
to this issue.
Yeah, the generator was up and running. They were down having to use cell phone service, walkie-talkies, et cetera, because what happened was Middleborough's 911 system failed. So Wareham was funneled in, Wareham was running the Middleborough system plus the wrong. And they got a couple thousand calls they had to deal with. And they basically had to transfer power to keep the main communication up inside the station there, which means nothing else could run. So they were pretty well planned. And that's, safety-wise, that's the real problem.
That's bad.
So they're going to need a generator, which even if it's mounted on a skid outside, it gets moved later on to move to a different facility, they're going to need something. There's no question about it. It's going to be on the priority list, pushed up even in front of the cars probably. So,
David, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, this isn't rocket science here. We've known since, not the last hurricane, the previous hurricane, that because it's an emergency command post, that his electronic requirements, if you go in there and watch it in operation during an emergency, his power requirements are off the scale. And what he's got to work with wasn't making him. That's 2 hurricanes ago, so what are we talking, 2.5 years ago? We needed a generator that would be able to handle that. I drove through town with my wife coming back from Easton, and we drove by the police station, and I said, well, generator's running, but of course, they can only supply half of what they need there in the police station. That's a pretty sad comment to make as you drive down the blackened street to know that the people you rely on for safety, in addition to your fire department and EMT, your dispatch center, they don't have the resources to work with it. And whether it's ambulances, generators, radios.
just a point also, just, we had 1 ambulance only run this time frame. The ambulance was out straight from the beginning to the end.
Moving on, Frank.
Go ahead.
Quickly, please.
Yes. I try to keep all this short while I was trying to cover. You want something like that?
No, I'm just saying, move along quickly, because this is depressing, right? And there's no answers.
Tom?
Why does overtime have to go up if we cut staff?
On the police
Staff is not
department,
available, yeah.
we basically are at minimum staffing for coverage for the town. So we have a choice. We have
Who decides what minimum staffing is?
Well, the chief decides it.
Well, if you don't have it,
Then you should be the chief of police, that's all I can say. Okay? You should be the chief of police. I mean, if you look at the crime statistics that are here, if you look at the crime statistics on the internet and see what it's doing to our ratings, and you have to come back and say, maybe the man has some credibility when he talks about, you know, I'm minimally covered. All right? So if somebody takes a day off, I can't go to one or two less cars because I can't get the coverage. You know, the other side, ICB radio, listen to all the calls that are coming in, and you'll start to understand what he's talking about. Yes.
To your point, you know, the chief is sitting in front of us, and he says, 351 towns, we're 14th in a particular category. All right. And then he says, we looked at the budget, and his overtime budget's been slashed. And we asked him how the overtime budget got slashed. And he said, town administrator cut me to this number. The only place I've got to cut it is overtime. So he truly does have both ends of the candle at this point.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, we can't, well, the other side too is, you know, we can kick it back to the town administrator is supposed to listen to the policies of the board of selectmen. So if there's a service level cut here, I don't think that's the chief's necessarily, his job should always be what he should need. The town administrator's job is to where he thinks it should be, and the ultimate deciding authority is the board of selectmen. What we're hearing from the chief now is to I have to assume that what he's telling me is to maintain it or slightly improve, because that's what happens. Right, the crime statistics, I have to be at these many levels over the course of the week. And if somebody's out for whatever reason, and most of them have some 60 days off, I believe, by the time you put the vacation and everything else in there. Right, to get minimum coverage in the town, I have to have an officer on duty, and that means overtime, because I have no extras. I have no, you know, not like we do in business where you say, hey, my staffing's 100 and I need an additional 5 or 7 people that I'll find work for who will always fill in. We don't have that. It costs too much to have a police officer, so we don't do it. It's our own policies that are killing us. And there's also the possibility, he's mentioned before, bringing people in who are not full officers, but that's, you know, that really hasn't been discussed in full. But he mentioned it and said that's a great way that we could save money. But that program has never been publicly aired, because nobody really wants to hear it. I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm just trying to do some fast facts here. I think we have to have the police department back.
I agree.
I think we have to have, we have to have
I
the chief
agree.
Absolutely.
and the town administrator. I think we have to have them back. That's the reason why I put that on. All right, this is the next item I had on there was. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You said that, some of the offices have to get moved up.
Well, they don't have to be moved up unless we find transfers from someplace else that, you know, have the qualifications.
No, what I was getting at, by moving them up or whatever, patrolman to sergeant or whatever, is that pay increase, considerable? You know,
I don't have the specifics on that. I know what some of them were making. We have, if you go back to your book, you'll see.
okay,
And I believe those rates are set by the union.
right.
And it's in your book.
It's in your
You've
book.
got lieutenants and sergeants.
And it's not, you know,
Mhm.
it's a pretty good increase, but I have to say, it's like Derek said, by the time we've done paying overtime to some of the more experienced officers right now, you're paying them more than what's in here. Or the salary. Fine, so, okay. Anyone else? The proposed financial director's position, there is $25,000 in the budget. You know, I heard one set, we all heard one set, one discussion where he was talking about taking the accounting department, the treasurer collector, and the assessors, all right, and putting that under the financial director. That's the plan, that was a $25,000 stipend. It has nothing to do with what the good doctor was talking about that. I don't know how that would work out. And the other side is, I know on the school side, that there are certain licenses that are required, right, by DESI, right, for somebody to be the financial person there. That's another thing, we need to do something even internally. We don't know if that person's qualified or whether or not they have the licenses. They can be trained, and the licenses can be earned, but we've had a history of that as well. Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, agreeing with you there, Frank.
All right, so does anyone have any comments on that? All right,
Well, no, we definitely need to have the police back in.
The $25,000 stipend,
yes.
that's not enough to cover that position.
That would have been enough to cover the position if we were talking only the three financial positions in the town coming together under that director. All right, now the assessor's office,
Because you're not staffing fully in those offices.
well, you're losing an assistant town accountant.
Okay. So it's
Right.
the salary for the assistant town accountant plus the
Right, in
25,000.
the town accountant's position, I think the qualifications are also being modified because the person on top would have the degrees.
Would
that-
have a degree that's.
Right, that was required. So allowing, basically, the town accountant becomes, you know, there's not as many qualifications. Experience becomes more important at that point than necessarily, you know, financial analysis degrees or something. But that's because you have the person on top
Who can do that?
who can do that, yes.
So, what,
And don't forget, he also has in his budget at year end that he will hire people who have experience in closing year end for towns. Right, there are a number of people that are available who are town accountants in other towns that are part-time positions. That's how we close this year. We're looking forward to having those people back again next year.
To you, Mr. Chair. So what are we advertising for right now? Are we advertising for a town accountant, or are we advertising, what are,
We're advertising for town accountant. Accountant is on the town website. We can look and see what the qualifications
Is
are.
it Easter? We're gonna have an Easter bunny this week.
Yes, but it has,
As to when he'd have, as when the position would.
yes,
would fill.
but it has been posted and the qualifications are there. Now, yes, it's a gamble because if the town meeting says no reorganization, then we have another problem. But, you know, what can you say?
I guess I'm completely confused. We're hiring a town accountant, but we're looking to not have a town accountant? Is that what-
No, there would always be the position of town accountant, it's the level of qualifications that would be required.
Can I take a shot
Right,
at this?
if you have a,
I would like
right, if you have a town accountant, with no supervisor with the, you know, the degrees, et cetera, that person is gonna have to be at a much higher level, educationally, experience-wise, et cetera. Right. If you have the person on top to do the financial analysis, the person the next level down, all right, municipal experience becomes extremely important, the process and classifications.
So the person we're trying to hire now is at what level?
Is at the second level, which is the danger, because if the reorganization doesn't pass, then we've got a problem.
I can tell you the people we were looking at as town accountants, with all due respect, you know, was a problem there already. So if you're going down a level, you're really getting some pretty basic accounting help on that. So you
I understand that, but
better
it's also,
darn well come up.
it's also the same staff that closed this year. I don't know, there's some real assumptions there.
The goal is to streamline accounting over the next year, isn't that Derek's
Yes,
objective?
within the financial resources of the town, and that's the killer.
Yeah.
That's the killer. That's the major reason for the reorganization, right, in my mind.
Can I ask a question? A simple one?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just looking at Derek's little map here that he did. So, I mean, correct me if I'm not understanding it, the assistant town accountant, is this the person who presently has the job as assistant town accountant, will move into the financial director position?
No,
Okay, then I'm
Her
really
really-
confused.
her position is eliminated, which means that she would be, well, she would probably apply for the position. So has her face trial. But that position is being eliminated. And she has to apply and compete against, and if she wants to apply, she competes against anyone else who responds to the advertisement.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right?
Just let me use my analogy that I, if you will, away from accounting. I'm a paralegal. I'm a very good technician. I can do everything that the lawyers can do except practice before the bar. I can't do that. I need to have a lawyer supervise me to step that one step further. What we would need to do in this town is have someone who understands municipal accounting. It's a very specific field. It's not business accounting, it's not personal accounting, it's municipal, it's special rules. So if we have someone who is a technician in that field, that's a good thing. We need to have someone who understands our accounting system, because goodness knows, we've spent a lot of hours talking about the reporting and the accounting system, the data system, and its shortfalls. So if we can get a really good technician in there, that's okay. But the town accountant role actually requires more analysis, planning, other financial analysis, that this person may not have that step. So when we're talking about someone less qualified, we may be talking about someone less degreed, okay? As long as we have someone on top of the town accountant who has those qualifications to do that financial analysis, who may not have specific municipal experience or experience with data. That's what the ultimate, I believe, hope is, that we would be able to do it that way. Because the other way sure hasn't been working out for us.
Yes.
It sounds to me, and actually I think this makes some sense, that you try and hire a good bookkeeper is what I hear you.
Yeah, so yeah, that would be
That's
the
where I was
common
going.
term.
That's where I was
And you're hiring a good bookkeeper, and would that get you a
I
long
want to use the
way?
term because the job that's posted is town accountant.
I hear you, but,
Yeah, in plain English, a bookkeeper.
you know.
But you still,
Accountants round, bookkeeper the detail.
If it walks like a duck, talks
Stuff
like a
duck,
duck.
probably,
but the concern being
There are
that we
many
still need that
considerations
higher.
to changing the titles.
Oh, yeah,
We still need that higher level analysis.
No.
All right, let's move back.
Well, the problem and the concern that we need to make very clear on town meeting floor is that that's all well and good if we get a qualified bookkeeper in that position. We still need the function, we still need the services of that higher level financial analyst, which would be the finance director position. If the town doesn't go through the reorganization and we only hire someone with those bookkeeping skills, out some significant needs, so.
Mr. Trudell.
To define it closely, bookkeepers record debits and credits, the analysis, accountants do the debits and credits, but they also analyze. So for those who are looking for that definition,
Oh, for those of you who know accountants speak.
Yes.
I don't even pretend I understand.
We try to dress it up this way because it sounds a lot better if you do it this way. What you're looking at is mechanical versus analytical. Those are the two things we deal with in the accounting world. When you're hiring someone to do a job, and if it's more entering day-to-day activities, it's more mechanical. And then you want the guy that sits up there and takes that, whatever they're entering, and say, they've got something to it, that's the analytical side. Now, if we go with the reorganization, this works great. And like you said, if we don't get the reorganization, then you have a serious issue, because a lot of times the mechanical person that you're hiring with this specific set of credentials is not gonna be able to do this job. And also vice versa, this guy up here is not going to maybe do the mechanical side. So we really have to sell the mechanical versus analytical, not words. Bookkeeper doesn't make people happy.
I like mechanical versus analytical.
And that's what we call it, that, in order, that keeps everybody happy. They're thinking, okay, great, I'm mechanical, you know, as opposed to I'm a bookkeeper. It doesn't sound the same. So that's how we dress it up.
A good bookkeeper is very important.
There we go.
No question. But a person with that skills is
Yes.
very important.
Yes, it is.
But one thing, as I look back on the last 3 years where I've been here, the one area that we probably have made a huge advance is the fact that we're actually getting some numbers that mean something. And I would hate to lose that again, because it's mighty hard to do any financial planning without having good numbers.
Current financial reporting is being compiled by the acting town accountant.
I
Should
understand.
also know that. I'll make that clear. That's the person that is doing it right now. that person was not involved in development of the format or any of that, but now that it's there, the person has proven himself to be capable of handling it. Any other questions? Yes, we can move on. Water pollution control facility, I suspect everybody's satisfied with the information we're getting from them.
No, I'm not. Wait. Whoa.
You said move on.
Well, we got it, we can move past this one.
Are we getting information that I'm not aware of?
Well, no, but that was his way of saying he's got some information for us.
No, that's my way of saying, you know, I don't have any more information than you do.
There's no new information.
There will be.
Now, but I'm gonna go one other further step, you know, we're sitting here, we're talking about all this. So, you know, if we address the water pollution control, I mean, that's like one solid meeting, not even a finance committee meeting, talking about, you know, what the article is or whatever, all right? It's like another one of those sessions that we had. And, you know, everybody wants to know, maybe we schedule one night at a different time around a weekend or something. We really need to sit down and go through this. This is like, you know, the budget preparation is a, you know, it's, all budgets are best guess. But to get your best guess, you need to have information going back. Okay, fine. You know, there's indirect costs that come up several different times. The numbers that we look at, some of the indirect costs are in there, but we don't know where they are, but they are there. All right? The whole issue of retained earnings and the use of retained earnings, because I can tell you, I do now. All right, it was mentioned last night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting that 4 generators failed at the pump stations. All right, and that was the first day. After that, another 2 failed. Right?
How many?
41, I think. All right, but not only did we not have replacement equipment ready to go, but we didn't have electricians. Our contractors lined up. There was a hell of a scramble. One mobile generator had to be hooked into a building, et cetera. Those generators are going to have to be replaced. Not only that, but for the 41 other ones that are sitting out there, the majority of those are reaching their obsolescence. And we have no plan at this point as to when they have to be replaced. So we know there's something there. It's like go back to the other thing, right? We know it's there, we know the expense is coming, and we know it should come next year, but we have no money specifically set, you know, we have no master plan, no plan that says these are the replacements that need to be done. The state cannot say any clearer that retained earnings should be used for capital and capital items, right? Well, fine, okay, we got capital money there. All right, if you want to use it for the equipment, then let's let everybody know. If you want to use it, I don't know, for hiring the electricians or the contractors or whatever, let everybody know. What I continuously hear over and over again, all right, is that we are constantly responding to emergencies. Okay, and sometimes there's unintended consequences. There were a number of manhole covers that were destroyed. All right, you know. In the plowing operation, sometimes the manhole cover is ready. You hit it with the wrong piece of equipment, and guess what? It's by manhole. All right, now you got to replace that, and those aren't cheap.
Do we have a capital equipment list for the town?
Oh,
No, Tom, that committee has been in a telephone for about 4 years.
yes, we do.
We do?
Have we ever funded
Yeah,
it?
we don't have the money to get it.
Do we have a
What do you mean
capital?
we don't have it?
We have a capital
Right
list,
there, that number,
more or less.
And the age
that
of
number
the,
5.
We have a capital list, more or less. Do we have a fixed asset inventory? No, we really don't. We really don't.
well, I mean, we ought to be able to get some interns in here or something over the summer and just go, have them, send them around with a list and start putting this thing together.
To take care of the pump station, you go down with a car. You need a special piece of equipment, because you have to put the generator out of there. Then you have to clean out the fan. Then you have to make sure the pump and the generator that you're replacing is carefully lowered by this piece of equipment. Now, up to a couple of years ago, the piece of equipment we had was not safe. I can't be sure, we've since replaced it and it's safe. However, the problem is not new. The problem is in terms of the capacity of manpower, the limitation of monies and equipment preclude anything other than emergency services to keep yourself on an even keel. If you're trying to talk about a management plan for our capital, Mr. Gifford carefully spelled it right out. I neither have the resources or the manpower to support the capital plan, period. Guess who works for Mr. Gifford? Mr. Campana reports up through Mr. Gifford. It's the same situation. We know about the generators. We know we didn't have a storage place for generators. It is an unending, self-fulfilling prophecy that we're up against. And until we find it.
Water pollution control is supposed to take care of its own capital needs as well. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I think the state keeps wanting to, and you should always have a surplus too. He's got a plan for contingency. He needs emergency funds in there. If he doesn't use them, hey, that's next year's, part of next year's capital. All right, something they have to do, he's got a replacement plan, he can only use 50% of his reserves, and he's got to change it. There's a whole lot of really things here. One of the things that's coming up is that all the manholes in town, manholes, the sewer system, are gonna have to be inspected. We need a license. Want to guess how many people we have that are licensed to do that? No, we do have one. We have a second one in training. You don't know how many manholes?
Yeah, that was the next question.
You thousands. No, those are the drains. I can't get a count. All I know is what I saw the maps. All right, I've seen the map several times. It always amazes me. Remember when you were in school and you had the game of little boxes with the lights? Well, that's what the map of Wareham looks like, with the sewer areas, with the manhole covers.
Just, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier and how this relates. And I promise I'll make it quick, all right? Over my budget. You know, we talked just a minute ago about the specifics of municipal accounting. Well, this is an enterprise fund, which is a totally different type of accounting. We don't have the people to handle that. I mean, we're talking accrual versus cash accounting, basically, is what we're talking. So you got one problem is getting information out of the system by people that really don't understand how an enterprise accounting works. That's number one. Number two, and Dick Paulson, I miss him for this, we don't understand retained earnings here. We haven't fully grasped the concept of what's restricted, what's unrestricted, and where it all lies in the middle of this. We simply just glaze over water pollution control like, well, it's an enterprise fund. My time's up. No, but that's another problem we have, is the accounting for it is specific. It's nothing like municipal accounting, and it's not being done, and we don't have reports to that. So you might need to look at putting someone with.
Well, we do, we have, that's in the budget for next year.
Well, what do you got?
Is $15,000 for a bookkeeping position. We
Right.
prefer to think of it as financial wizard.
That, and just so you know, I think that's, well, I can't say that on TV, but I don't think that's enough money, let's put it that way. You know. Okay, is that close enough for you, Sam? That's not gonna cover what we need. You think $15,000 is
I
gonna
don't
do
think
what we
so.
need?
Mr. Goodell?
It's shutting down if I'm wrong, or in a sensitive area. If someone were to use the retained earnings to pay down a debt to individual homeowners.
That's outside the realm of this conversation.
Okay.
That's outside the realm of this conversation. Our bigger problem too is also, you know, it gets scary to start getting low with some of this stuff because there's retained earnings in business, and there's retained earnings in municipal accounting, and guess what, folks? There's different definitions for retained earnings in enterprise accounts as well. Okay, so now it goes back to the other thing I brought up, is what do we want to do about it for ourselves? Do we want to just keep going round and round and not truly have an understanding of this? Or or do we want to put together a workshop as quickly as possible that everybody will commit to attend, right? I mean, I'll get the resources to come and to explain it to us. If they can't do it, then I won't have them come in, right? But if we can get the people to come in and explain it to us, I honestly don't want to give them time, I'll be honest, I'm selfish, right? But I think we have to do it. We have to do it.
Explain what? Explain municipal account, or enterprise accounting to us?
The whole set, right, and the setup that we have and what needs to be done to put the correct stuff in place.
Wouldn't that also require the town administrator and all those people as well?
I said, who do you think we're gonna get to come in and explain it?
Well, I don't know.
You know, and if they need to bring some outside resources, we would ask them to bring it. The question is, do we wanna go through it or just let it go until next year?
I'll have to go look at the list of problems we have facing us right now and see.
You know, I'll leave it up to the other members. And don't forget, you have an accounting background.
You know, I understand that.
I was gonna suggest that this may be one of the more fixable problems we have. At least we can get it on track with the accounting perspective of it. I mean, one of the issues that I've had for the years that I've listened is not having a whole lot of confidence in the numbers. This is the first time I've actually seen a budget that has things broken out more understandably. But it's always seemed to me that it was, this is how much money we can get, let's spend it this way, as opposed to, and we know we're doing the cash system with the appropriate approval system. I now understand the difference, thank you very much. And we know what we need to do. So it seems to me this is one area that we can actually make forward progress. I also would prefer not to give up the time, but it's something that I think we can have some positive impact on.
My question is, what are we gonna do? Once you have this, what exactly are we gonna do?
I think they would be to insist absolutely that it be brought in line with what the state expects. If for other reasons, we're also gonna have an article before town meetings for the board of sewer committee this year. And we're gonna wanna be prepared if that passes. They're gonna have to have the financial statements as well. And if we go back to the board of selectmen and insist that they bring that accounting into line with what needs to be done. The state guide is pretty clear. All right, and, you know, if nothing else, we can definitely say you should be sitting down talking to the Powers and Sullivan about as what we need, and, you know, what do we need manpower wise, and how do we get to where we're supposed to be?
Frank, do we need it between now and the town meeting?
Yes, definitely.
I'll deal with this Friday morning.
I think we do need it before now in time. I think there's gonna be several things that are gonna come up once we see the warrant that are gonna raise issues, and we're not gonna be prepared.
Frame, not so much the actual meeting, but if you had to put a guess in it, because I mean, we can make this last 8 hours, but is this really an hour or 2 hour meeting to make us understand and more towards that, or are we
I think
looking
it's a
at?
minimum of 2, probably more like 4.
Yeah, okay, I'm good with that, I understand
Now,
that.
if you read the guide that we gave everybody to read, you know, there's some real, some wake-up calls in there, okay?
Absolutely.
What do we hear all the time? Well, if I use a truck for municipal maintenance bills me. What does the guide say? You can't bill from one department to the other, you have to by transfer. Well, what's the ramifications of a transfer? Okay, if it's between the town and it's between the water pollution control, we know on the town side, who has to approve that transfer? Us. And we know there's pretty severe limitations to that too. $5,000 or 3% of wherever the money's coming from. So, if they need more money to come in for them, or they, you know, like I was saying, you know, oh, we've got to look at this, hold on a second. We might have been billing over the years, it was great, hey, we'll bill that, we'll bill that, we'll bill that, we throw it in, everything's fine. But according to the state, we're outside the bounds of the law. The other side on this too is never underestimate state agencies. Right now, we have problems. So the DOR comes in and says, fix. Okay, we fixed it here. I said, very good, you did a good job. Now fix the next piece, and the next piece, and the next piece, and it doesn't go away until you're back in line. And right now, they're doing the same thing that we've done, I think, within the town. We've addressed major issues. And water pollution control is going to become an increasingly big issue because we are not following the state laws. Or we can just ignore it. That's, I'm putting it out to all of you.
Mr. Chairman,
I agree.
No, I'm sorry, the chair wishes to speak.
I just feel that again, to just use a further term, you've got a mechanical person running the water sewer commissioners. You've got an overtaxed maintenance department. You've got an overtaxed everywhere. But somebody's gotta rein this in and make sure that we're doing things legally, we're doing things right. And Mr. Campina is probably the most willing person in the world to accept help.
Oh, man.
And he will tell you what his strengths and his weaknesses are. We have a responsibility to the rest of the folks in this town. I mean, this is $6 million. I mean, come on, we've got to bring this in, right, Dominic?
$6.5 million business.
6.5, I'm sorry.
It's all right. And, you know, it's amazing. I do have a question for you, too. I don't see anywhere where it actually says retained earnings. Am I missing something or something? I mean, I see budgets, I see revenue, I see others, I don't see anything that says retained earnings.
You mean on the sheets that you're seeing?
Out of anything that I've ever got.
Well, it's in the audit. If you go to the audit, you'll find it.
It's in the audit,
It's in the
okay.
The difference is, first off, what you're getting in the budgets, et cetera, is what it costs to operate.
I understand
All
that.
right?
Yeah.
The revenues and stuff. The retained earnings are on the balance sheet.
Yeah, it's just,
Okay.
All right, and that says, okay, you know, we normally would see retained earnings is in the ownership section. Because I put money aside to do things, and whether it's to replace equipment, or whether it's to buy another company, or it's to have a reserve. All right, that is on, it is in the audit, it is in the audit.
I have another question for you. Do you remember, or whatever, is retained earnings a large number, or a large sum, small sum? If it's a large sum,
Well, I've heard the number of $3.5 million kicking around. I've also looked at the balance sheet
you know,
for the town, which includes all the infrastructure as well,
you know,
right, which puts it up to some $70 million.
okay, so,
Okay, so
if you have, you know, $3 million in retained earnings in water pollution control, I think that it's absolutely a sin if that can be used for capital and we have things that are going wrong.
That's,
You know what I'm trying to say? Now, hear me out for 1 second. You have $3 million and you need generators. We should have them. Why spend overtime to fix broken stuff? Why are you spending money wrong when you have the money to do it right? It happens to be only the one place maybe where we have money to run it right. It's a $6.5 million business. Let's run it right. Right, David?
David?
If I may, Daryl's point is it's fixable, Don's point is it's fixable. You made a compelling argument that if we don't get it under control, then one of our responsibilities in the transfers, we are as at fault as the people that may have done it where they believe that they were correct. It's our charter, for my belief, that we have to get our handle on this. And I will commit to the time, provided, of course, that I'm not traveling.
Okay,
that's
all
what
right,
I'm
so, all right, I think there's a general consensus that we should try and put something together. If you would, I'm gonna ask each of you to send me your available times, okay? And
weekend or weekend?
your available times.
Well, I
Okay?
really
No,
appreciate
maybe you don't have a weekend, I'm just saying, you should send me your available times.
in what
I'll put it
period?
together, pardon?
In over what period?
Oh, I would say over the next 60 days maximum. And I'll only be looking probably at the next 30.
we're just trying to keep an eye on it,
You got it.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm all for this, and I think this is something we need to do, but what we have to be cautious of is sometimes terminology. Allocation, transfer, billing. So when someone says they're billing, they may not actually be billing. They may actually be allocating or not transferring. So
You
you have
can't
to-
allocate, you cannot allocate or bill, you must
understand.
transfer.
I understand that.
We have never been
But-
asked for a transfer.
I was going, now see, you just interrupted me, and that's not polite. My point is part of this training that we should go through is understanding terminology, because we have to be careful of the terminology we use, and they have to be careful, our administrator and everybody involved what the terminology they use, because it means one word transfer may mean something different to them than it does to us. So that's part of the learning curve for everybody as well.
You do know that the state is going to, I believe the state is going to do a procurement class here in town for certain individuals. I will ask the town administrator if they might have some availability, someone who would explain the enterprise.
I would,
accounting.
that'd be great.
So send me your schedules and see what I can do. I'll talk to the town administrator, right, and see what he can do, because it would have to come through him. The guy who ultimately report to him. I will channel that through the chairman of the board of selectmen. That's our agreement, it's policy. Okay, so send me your schedules. I just want to make sure that we're all pretty much in agreement. I could sell all of these back at, you know. Even I'm having trouble keeping track of all this. Let me tell you.
Hey, I am so eager to learn more than I ever wanted to know about enterprise finance.
Is that with a hint of sarcasm in there?
Well, it also takes us into the next step. Okay, we do a lot of bonding for obviously the opportunities of the water pollution control, right? And the town has always been covering, for a long time, it had stabilization, well, it had stabilization, it's spent it all. And we've been trying to build it back up again. And the main reason for the stabilization is our bonds. And should the town really have stabilization account to cover the bonds of water pollution control? Maybe that's where they should have their own stabilization account. That's something we would discuss in that meeting as well. All right, if they're gonna have, the town's debt right now is $2.9 million, there's $600,000 stabilization. Water pollution control, we saw that's $31 million, and zero. That doesn't seem right to me. The question is, can we do it, and if we can do it, how do we go about doing it? How do we sell to everybody that this should happen? Okay. Reserve for contract settlements, we talked about that last week, so I just think we need to address that with the town administrator next time we meet with it, as to what's in his budget. Information technology budget considerations.
Hot potato.
Well, the other side is, you know,
What?
how he said hot potato.
I thought he said off the table, I thought.
No.
I said hot potato.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought you said off the table.
That's it.
He did say off the table.
I didn't eat no seafood.
I would, you know, Madam Chair, I would recommend that our liaison
Oh,
try to get in touch with the people involved in the information technology and find out what needs to be done and what, if anything, we can do about it. Write letters, write emails, make phone calls,
Okay,
or whatever, you know, including whatever, wherever the holdup is.
that would be me,
Who do we
yeah.
have to talk to?
Yeah.
Right, and do we need to make a request from the BO, you know, from the BOS again, or whatever.
Mhm.
And right now, what we heard in our budget meetings was that they're at a dead standstill. They're at a dead standstill. And I know during the hurricane, I finally got my internet back up, I was like, wow, that's great, and let me see what's going on. You know, what town? I couldn't even find out if the schools were down, so I couldn't find out if schools were canceled, I couldn't get my town email, all that kinds of stuff, and we all know the problems that exist there.
I will,
We can do that.
I will endeavor to contact our town administrator as well as our director of information technology.
The next two, G and H, which were the inspectional services and the Board of Health budget requests and their budget, et cetera. We heard a lot in our meeting about trying to do something to raise more revenue. It seems like I would like to have them come back and hear if there's been any progress, right? And what we could do to try to raise fees by July 1st, or what we can put in place to be self-sufficient. And that's what we heard. We heard a lot of stuff that, well, we can pay for ourselves if we do this.
Yeah, they made a compelling case
Right.
with the personnel. The enforcement could be better than it currently is, and it would be self-funding in terms of the revenue that they would be generating.
Who's that, the Board of Health or the Inspection Services?
Both of them. Both of them. And in many cases, sometimes it's doing inspections that weren't done, that need to be done.
It's going back.
Should be done.
Yeah.
If you Go back to the tapes.
The inspectional services, yeah, the inspectional services did have a real rough turn of events this year. Board of Health has always had great ideas. Like, I don't know, you know, if the town has taken any serious or done anything with them, but they've done their research on fees and inspections. And, yes, Mr. Slick.
Effective January 25th.
Oh.
Increases in building permit fees, plumbing, gas fees, electrical permit fees. Effective 1/25/13.
But there was also discussions with us about follow-ups. It wasn't just a matter of just the fee, it was a matter of violations.
Does it get you to break even?
There's fines here too, stuff like that.
Pardon?
There's fines listed here as well.
But that's just a listen now. What we heard was that we don't have enough manpower or resources to go out and do the inspections on a daily basis.
No, you have to hire first your director of building inspectional services, a full-time person when you're gonna do that.
We don't hire what we know
I'm
who
just
does.
saying.
We don't hire what we know who does.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll come down.
There's no priority on this right now. I'm not saying it.
Isn't Paul that person, or who's that person? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Dave Moore right now is full-time handling, you know, the emergency stuff for us. He's out of Middleborough, semi-retired,
Great
doing a
person
nice
to be able
job,
to.
but it's only there limited time.
And Paul, what about Paul? Can't he do
They
more?
do, well, again, you know, they're not qualified to do all the things that has to be done. You need to have the director of inspectional services that has all, I think there's 5 different certifications you have to have. And you have a code enforcement officer, you have to have the certifications for that.
In fact, talk
We
about all.
also heard that having people in there without qualifications has financial ramifications for every citizen and resident in the town.
Absolutely.
Right, and the clock, we also told that we've already been expecting the clock's ticking for the next 5 years. And, you know, by the time we picked somebody, it sounded like the first year will already have been gone.
On the board of selectmen's list of things.
So, never mind, that
So
was a
on
bad
this-
editorial comment.
When I was the liaison for the inspectional services, Miles was there working, and I spoke with him. He said that he felt one of the big deficiencies was fines. He says there is a ton of money out there to be made on fines of people doing things wrong. He didn't really get into, you know, what they were, but, you know, any building permit or anything, if something was done wrong, he says that we're really not, there's a lot of money to be made on fining people for doing things wrong. I'm not seeing him be, you know, abusive or anything, like abusive parking tickets or anything, but he said that we're missing the boat on the revenue on fines for people who do things wrong on the permits. Just something that he told me.
What he's basically saying is we've been non-compliance, which is exactly what the insurance agency is saying when they rated us up as.
Yeah, he said we're missing the boat big time.
They're in total agreement,
Yeah,
okay?
okay.
He made the statements and they backed it up.
Okay, it's just when I said that, he told me, all right.
So I guess he was right. Bonnie?
I guess just a quick, I know that we've obviously with the insurance, with the word that we got from our insurance number, that, building in Wareham isn't trustworthy. But I also wouldn't want to get into a situation of, not encouraging development that we are so beyond, slapping everybody's wrist and finding everybody in the world that nobody's gonna want to.
I agree with being abusive is wrong, but
You know.
I don't
You
think
still
we're
make
going to
money
be
without the
abusive.
abuse.
I think basically what we're describing is a situation where the rules are there.
Right.
Just follow them.
Yeah.
If you follow them, you know, and my comment has always been over the years to people that if you do things up front properly,
Yep.
it takes a lot less time to do them
Oh,
than it does later on come back and have to fix them, plus pay the fine on top of it. It's so much cheaper to do it right the first time.
Anecdotally, Bonnie, I was just gonna say, unfortunately, what's happened is just the opposite. When he gets the reputation of, they'll let it slide, it's not a big deal. not specifically just with the building inspecting, but also with some of the other board decisions that have been handed down. If we don't take the proper time to do it, it's easier to pick it apart and find that edge and just kind of take advantage of us for not doing it right in the first place.
Mr.
So
Chairman?
we're correcting that. And other towns are really, really hard
Yeah.
and very expensive, so we're not going to be doing anything that other towns around here are already doing.
Mrs. Brown?
I just need to comment for on this issue, one time, because I deal with those people in special services constantly. And I tell you, I'm really surprised that Paul doesn't have all the qualifications he needs. We're not building, they're on my butt constantly, making things
You
safe.
were right the
and
first
good.
time.
That's, well, no, I'm telling you, they are,
Careful.
whoever they are, whoever, that fellow Dave, I've met him a couple of times, very helpful, very knowledgeable. My only gripe is, why can't we just have somebody in there with all the credentials? But I don't believe Wareham is, those people down there are letting us build unsafe stuff, because I'll tell you, they're very knowledgeable, the two men that are there. And they make you do it right, and that's the way you should build it. I mean, you know, that's the way. And I can't say anything negative, I just wish we had somebody with all the qualifications. And another thing we're facing in this town, and I see it in the Board of Health, and I see it in the inspectional services all the time. Look, the support staff's great, but they get tons of time off. Try and get support staff on a Monday or a Friday in the building department. They can't get anything done because they're covering the phones. They don't have the staff.
Back to the budget.
Well, that's.
Oh, no, that was great.
No, I'm just saying.
It's back to the budget.
Both the planning department and board of health made a case that they could do more with people. We should get them back in. One of the conundrums that they were dealing with is you had to have money to start the project. And so it's kind of like, I need something to pay somebody's salary so revenue can be generated, but I don't have the wherewithal to make it happen. I strongly urge us to bring both of those boards back in for a
Yes,
conversation.
we also asked them to try to come up with something very quickly to see if we couldn't get something in place in April.
I'm for that.
And if they're
I support that.
running into roadblocks, we'd like to hear back to it.
Yeah, because they are. They're running into terrible roads.
Nobody's questioning, I don't think anybody's questioning capabilities or, dedication of people that are there. The problem with certification people, et cetera, is they come in, it's a bunch of check boxes, and if they can't check off the box, no matter how good that person is. They don't have that particular license or certification, you lose. And
And I agree.
They might be the best building inspector in the United States, but the box isn't checked.
And that's what we gotta make sure, that everybody, that who we hire is qualified.
Right. I'm sorry, Tom,
Is the backlog reasonable in town, or?
I have no idea. That's,
Mr. Moore has taken care of the backlog. He's now working on looking at some permits that were done the last couple of years and seeing whether there was errors made, et cetera, and starting to go after people.
and if he finds them,
As
Bonnie's
Mrs.
in.
McDonald mentioned.
So it's responsive
The
in
job,
terms of-
has also been posted as well as the town, et cetera.
But then we're into Bonnie's situation. Now, anything that they find, that he finds that's wrong, let's go back, we gotta fix it, and then it's, well, we're hostile. And the hostility is really the fact that,
We didn't do the job.
we're not consistent. We're not consistent. We're totally, I'm sorry, we're consistently inconsistent.
We're not consistent.
But that's where the hostility comes. Is people very often will say, if I knew up front I had to do it that way, I would have done it.
But it is in the book someplace.
It's in the book. Oh, yeah. I would say to Mr. Moore, I put my money on it.
So let's get them back.
All right, school department budget, what's the more should say after our first,
Pass.
Pass.
and the capital budget? And
Pass.
after, I mean,
What capital budget?
there's a capital planning meeting this Friday for everybody else to come and listen to some people maniacs, scream like maniacs. Mrs. Donnie?
adding money back into this budget for other staff and new positions and things like that, but something else that had come up, almost tongue in cheek, and then we thought maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea. Specifically for our IT person, but maybe not also for our TA. Have we considered key man life insurance? Is that something that can be done in municipal government?
What?
Key man life insurance. In other words, we have a guy that runs our IT department that
Oh,
knows
it's
everything.
disability in life, too. We wouldn't want disability
Disability,
as
okay.
well.
Disability in life. So in other words, if we lose him, he's the guy that knows everything. If we lose him, we have to get outside contractors to hire somebody. If there's no money in our budget, when you have a budget that has extra money and you can find it, you're okay. But what would it realistically cost us if something happens to him?
I have an answer for that,
Okay.
about 4 times what we're paying.
Oh, well, no, that's the answer. So I'm thinking it may be fiscally prudent. You do that in a business actually, lenders make you do that. The bank, if you want to start your own business, the bank's gonna lend you money, but you're the only one that can run your business. So if you die, what's the bank gonna do? They make you get life insurance to cover their loss. And I'm thinking the town may be needing to think
It's
that.
almost like a business interruption insurance too, right? For some reason, he can't, he can't perform his duties for whatever reason, right? Then the insurance company will pay the cost of what it takes to have somebody come in and do the work. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a
Because
premium
in other
involved.
areas, there are people in the departments that can
That makes
step
sense.
up, single sideways or something. But in IT, we've got nobody.
All right, we got 3 conversations ago. And they had the right, Maryland had the floor, so.
Sorry.
Now say what were you saying, I'm sorry.
I was just saying that if you ensure that on the basis of paying the money that you would have to pay to get somebody in,
Mhm.
minus the payment that you would be making to him, assuming he's dead, so you don't have to pay him. Problem is disability, where you're still paying him his salary, and you're having to pay others too. But one of the things that key man insurance doesn't do is it doesn't solve your problem.
Oh, I understand that, but one of our major problems, if I may interrupt you, is we don't have any succession plans at
That
all.
was my next.
We have no assistant department heads who are ready to take the next step, or who are educating themselves to take the next, get those certifications and do those various things. All right, and
If you're the head of a company and you get key man insurance on you, and you're the only person who can run the company, and something happens to you, great, there's a nice check that comes in, but it doesn't solve your problem.
but it may allow you to bring a higher level in the responsibility.
I think the only thing where I would see where it would be helpful is if you know that there's gonna be a funding requirement to get other people on the short term. That makes sense.
Well, that's the scenario we have in some cases.
Yeah.
And the one right now is IT. We don't really have a backup in that area. And I think if we take a close look, we'll find more than
Well, thanks for taking away my succession. As you get older in business, you learn words like contingencies and succession planning, and it's a key ingredient, but in a town, I don't know how you would do it, because obviously we're dealing with a budget that has certain limits. And on top of when we're talking about the IT department, if you, maybe after I get the information back here legitimately, we're gonna find that it's not just the person there, it's the equipment. And we're gonna have some tough decisions coming in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years, and it's not just the man who runs the department, it's the equipment. And we have a serious problem there that's not going to be solved, and it's not gonna be cheap to solve the problem one way or the other. So something we might want to consider is that, we talk about capital, well, it's gonna get worse.
And the way we budget says, fine, if we have to do that next year, then what are we gonna cut this year?
Well, and that's why I'm not gonna do a political speech tonight, so I'm just
Well, no, I'm not.
and the reality is.
I'm not making a political statement, what I'm saying is true.
But-
We fund things by cutting from other areas.
I know, and that's not the way you run a company, and that's not the way you should have to run a town, but the shareholders, or whatever we call ourselves, taxpayers, are wanting to get services for nothing, or very little, and not wanting to pay for those services, but they wanna complain when they don't have the services. We have school systems where we're not gonna get people in that want to, I don't know, I stop at this point.
Now, that's a political statement.
Okay, and that's why I stopped.
My only comment on that is, there's a very good football coach who makes a comment, it is what it is. And what is at the moment is our budget, the way we have it. We're gonna have to make some very difficult decisions and set some priorities. And, I think that's where our priority should be, is looking and saying, what priorities are we gonna go for? We know we're gonna short out a lot of things. We know that. But what ones are we gonna short out? We have the money that we have. The chances of getting an override are very poor in my mind. So we have the money that we have, and I think what we should be doing is looking and trying to make some hard decisions as to where we're gonna put the money. And that should be our real effort in where we should be spending our time.
Our effort has to be advocating with the town administrator and the board of selectmen, because they're the only people who have the authority to do that.
Thank you.
And the question is, how do we become good advocates where everyone says, hey, you know what, you need to listen to the finance committee. Right, or you need to at least sit down and discuss these things and start taking these actions. I don't have an answer on that, and I don't think we'll come up with it tonight. I think it's something that we should bring back as an agenda item again. I think it's important for this committee going forward to really understand what its mission is and decide how it's going to do it. All right, remembering that every year we lose 3 members.
Alongside that, I think we should, or somebody should, start a publicity campaign so that the town is well aware of the fact that we're probably $3 million in the hole, and some of the changes are gonna have to take, potentially being considered, so that we get everybody in the game.
Yeah, well, we're starting
I mean,
this year, we're trying. All right, Maryland has started.
4 days
Put 'em in
without
the
power,
coverage.
I just didn't really get voted. I'm working on that, Tom, and actually, I'm happy to take input from anybody else, but what I thought I would do is really piggyback off the sessions that we had and let the town know one budget at a time. People always want to micromanage because it's easier to talk about the trees that didn't get cut outside
That's right.
your house. Let's explain to them why it's not happening. We all know we're going to have a reduction in services. This is what we're being faced with. So I'm starting, I've done municipal maintenance. I probably won't do the police until they come back in here again.
And my motive
I'll
is
do a
would,
rough draft of the next meeting to see if you kind of on board with the way I'm going to present it.
and the motive would be so that the town says, the hell with it, we're going after
An override.
not override.
Just
So
ordinary-
market an override on,
Ordinary
through,
revenues.
pardon me?
Ordinary
Levies, yeah.
All right, one of the things that came up at the selectmen's meeting last night was every unique piece is identified as a developer to come up with a hotel. The hotel is going to, and they brought it up, it is very difficult to finance hotels. However, deals in, let's see, taxes alone, the option taxes that we have in place, could generate as much as $130,000. We need to be able to, advise town meeting on how to look at some of these like TIF fees and stuff. Sure, maybe there's some minuses here, but what are the pluses that outweigh that, such that every other town in America is doing it? Why would we want to say no? And I think it should not be settled on the blogs associated with certain sites. It's the type of thing that we need to be prepared going into town meeting, all right, to put it out there in non-accounting language as to why this is in our best interest. All right, and those types of things, I think, will get the maximum support. The override is always going to be difficult, but it's pretty hard to argue when somebody can sit there and say, yeah, well, I'm giving you $5,000 worth of taxes from the crouton company, but look what else is doing for me. Or look what I'm saving and what I'm protecting. All right, those things I think we can clearly argue. And I think the town looks to us to bring those explanations to them. All right, and I think I've been as guilty as anybody is not having been able to clearly state those or really made the effort to find the right resources to get that information out.
To the common man.
And
I say the common, you know, hey,
You're right.
to the accounting and finance people, you're all common.
Make the common
We're all
man
uncommon.
understand the
Ow, I don't want to be with that
the
baby.
big
Yes.
picture, the part you're not thinking about.
And remember, we can all practice on Bonnie.
Are we good to go?
I will interpret.
On to piggyback on what Frank is saying, and I don't know if it requires maybe just a short session before we finally go into town meeting, but one of the complaints that I've heard from people at town meeting is that the finance committee is not verbal enough at town meeting. We are not explanatory enough, and we are not really pushing the things that we believe in. So when it comes to those points, we all need to be prepared to whoever's gonna take their turn and stand.
I disagree. I
I-
think we've been
I-
very,
yeah.
very explanatory, and I think we've pushed,
Not necessarily on budget issues, though. I think this is gonna come now.
The other thing is, you know, my father taught me a long time ago, you can't please 100% of the people. So people are gonna complain no matter what we do, but every time you pick up a warrant and you look in there, it has financial, the finance committee's explanation. Now, I'm not saying that people can't read, because I'm pretty sure they can, they're just not choosing to read, because we are advocating for certain things, and we're advocating strongly for those in there with our opinion. And to me, if we stand up and reiterate it over and over again, I mean, we spend most of our time, we would hog the time. That's for the people. At this point in time, when we get to town meeting, we have our recommendations in there. They don't come to our meetings, so they don't hear them, so now they can read them. Well, they don't want to read them. Now they want us to reiterate everything we just spent 3 months doing.
and I think we've done it well.
That's our job.
But
That's what I said, that's our job.
I like that term. I like that term. That's our
Well, I
job.
need to
But
see
one
it.
thi- but one thing we have not been doing, and I'm not sure if we can, but one thing we have not been doing is saying, hey, look, the budget as it's being proposed is putting money here, and I want to take that money out of there and put it somewhere else. We've not been really saying
Why
that,
would we do that?
because we think that there's priorities, and our priority may be different than what the selectmen are.
All right.
have done, and we should say so. We should say so first to the selectmen, obviously, we feel that, but then we should also say it, be ready to say it to the town meeting.
Now you're getting it.
Can I interpret what Sam is saying now is that in the next month or two, or 2 months, we need to work hard or listen to the town administrator and the board of selectmen to get the budget together, because that's it. In the past, Sam, it's been beneficial to the town if we walk in with a united budget, if we're all in agreement on it. If we're not in agreement, then we go the other route. But we ourselves need to make up our minds what we want to see them do, and that's what we seem to be missing.
Exactly.
We're still missing,
Exactly.
I can't even remember which number we're at trying to cut now, 1,935,27, I mean, it just.
Well, there was a couple of big switches at the last minute too, so.
And you know, I would have asked the obvious question of the school committee, which is, all right, you've got all these problems, what are you suggesting, what are you proposing? But I know it's a useless question, because they don't have an answer. Other than, well, just, if you force us to, we'll cut people back.
That's why I asked for some ramifications of that. Again, they say that, and then it's like, you know, we're gonna cut 16 staff people. Fine. What do you know, I don't wanna know about people. I wanna know about what services you cut it.
That's
Right,
right.
what's gonna happen? That's what I wanna know.
You cautioned us not to get into
I know.
specific things,
Well, no,
so I was being
positions.
a good boy and I
Positions.
didn't ask that question.
Not positions, they opened up the whole thing. All right, Tom, you gonna?
No, I think, what my tongue right to say.
That's not being a very good committee member.
That isn't it.
All right. You know, everyone, you know, my whole thing is, you know, everyone says, let's cut. Revenue, we need to just, you know, make more revenue, but getting back to what Sam said, I think that we gotta try to do it, you know, before town meeting. Going in there and being against everything, you know, we should try to solve it and go in, you know, before and try to work on it amicably, you know, to do it that way. But when you get into the specifics about what we should spend and what we shouldn't spend on smaller scale, then I believe that you're starting to run the town. And I don't think that's our job, you know, to run the town. And, you know, to advise it on financially and maybe give an opinions on that, but you can't nitpick every single, you know, little tiny, you know, budget to, I think you know what I'm trying to say, Sam. Through you, Mr. Chair.
You know, I certainly agree that you shouldn't be nitpicking. And I realize we are not the person who is delivering the budget. I also agree that of course you go try and make the changes that you wish, that you'd like to see as a committee before you get to town meeting. I think the arguing in town meeting is only the last stand where everything else has failed. But I don't see us having, maybe I'm wrong in this, I don't see us having a opinion as a committee formulated that says, hey, these are the priorities that we should be working on. These other things are gonna have to fall back in order to fund that, and trying to sell that to the Board of Selectmen. Now, in the past, I realize some of the problems have been that it's been such a moving target that it's been pretty hard to nail down. But I think what I'd like to see us do is, these are very difficult problems, obviously, that we're faced with budget-wise. But at some point, you've got to say, I'm going to give this one our priority, you know, and try and give money to school or wherever it is, where we decide. And that's what we're going to try and do. I don't think, I agree with you, I don't think we should be getting into micromanaging how the police department works. I think that's not at all our position.
No.
But I do think that it is our position to say, hey, we really as a town should have the following priorities, and that's where the money should be going, even at the expense of some other very important services. We still have to cut those in order to hit our priorities.
Okay, I agree with what you're saying, but through you, Frank, do we do that, where do you think best bang for the buck is? Before, you know, working with the people, or again at town meeting?
Definitely before. I definitely feel we should be working with the selectmen first. Or selectmen, or the town administrator, or whoever it is, first.
Okay, let's step back a little. Would it be better to go and advise the department heads and then work with the TA through the department heads? Would that be where the buck would stop? Or do we go and, you know, now, or do we go just with the TA and the selectmen? How do you feel the best way to pull our tanks around the fight? What would be the best route that you feel the best way to go? You like that?
I like that one.
Okay.
I don't think we could go directly to the division heads, because that's not our position.
But it's the position of where the money is actually being spent, and we can feel where the money is best spent. You can find out what is more important to that department than it would just go to the TA and say, their budget needs to be cut? You know?
I agree with you, the more specific you can be, the better, obviously. If that's what you're suggesting.
Marilyn?
I guess what I was gonna say is Sam's theory would probably work better if we actually had money to work with, because
Well, of course.
the first year that the point being is that we fought very hard to get a stabilization fund. When I came on the finance committee, there was none. And we fought very hard, and we kind of drew a line in the sand, and we said, we've got to start saving somewhere. And we were able to push that a little bit. But now the hard part is, we are nitpicking, and at the risk of going line item by department, that means we're really micromanaging, and that's not a good thing. So are we going to start making inflammatory statements like animal control? All right, there's $83,000, cut the whole department. You know, people call up and say, I've got skunks, there's a dog. I'm sorry, the town no longer has animal control. You won't be the first town in Massachusetts that has done that. But that's a service, and that's what people are going to have to decide. Recycle it, and it's only $5,000, but you know what? We don't need it, cut it out. Some point, we're going to have to start doing that, or Derek's going to have to start doing it. We're doing it together, but at some point it's going to come, because we're still have a budget gap, and we're all still talking theory, and we're not talking nuts and bolts.
That's great, I both of them, I could care less.
Free lunches too, by God. Let me just clarify, I am not suggesting that we fight the town administrator. I think we should be trying to help them. Now, we may disagree with them, and we should make that clear if we do, but we should be trying to help people move the town along, not hurt that. But I think we've got to be more oral and outspoken as to what we think the priorities in the town are.
Okay.
This was when the meetings with the town, the Board of Selectmen would be most helpful. In any budget that I was ever involved with, in all the years of the budget, whether it was an annual budget, the project budget, whether it was a strategic budget, it always came down to the very first step was setting the priorities. What are we trying to accomplish and what are the priorities? Once you had the priorities, then you came down to what are the resources that are available to us. All right, and then once you know those resources, how are we going to spend those or allocate those resources out? We continuously, over the last 3 years that I've been involved, we always go in, we have no idea what the priorities are. It's left in the hands of the town administrator, who at all times is trying to satisfy everybody. Let's be honest about it. All right, I've seen some of the other municipalities in Massachusetts, cities and towns, both, all right, where they've sat down ahead of time and told whoever's putting the budget together, these are the priorities. We want so much here, so much here, so much here, and so much here. And that may not match the prior year, but they also have the information. So last year, if we spent 25% in police, and crime rates are up, and we want to do something, maybe we want to spend 26, and we want you to take it from here. Or we think you should take it from here. Many, many towns have, as the start for the town administrator, percentage guidelines for each of the major functions. All right, that's what the town administrator is supposed to have in mind when he starts out. If he needs to change, he gets it before the first time the budget comes down. Any document placed in front of you by anyone always suffers from pride of authorship. I've done everything in my power to make it the best document. So the thing is not to put whoever's putting that budget together in that position. Because if you do, then you're going to have to fight on town meeting floor every single time. You need to change how we go about doing the budget. We're sort of in the spot right now. This is the third year that we've sent the town administrator and the superintendent's office that said solve it. And we're going to wind up in the same situation we wound up in the last 3 years. And we wind up with one-time solutions that will not solve the problem going forward.
And the can gets kicked further down the road.
There is no road.
There is no road. Ran into the wall.
There is no road.
Kicking it uphill and keeps
It's
rolling.
no longer a can anymore,
I
it's a
think
medicine ball.
Mr. Trudell woke up. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I've been listening while I've been playing solitaire.
But when I start doing that, you can tell I'm getting bored with the conversation. The reality is that the selectmen have not been involved in the budget process, period, end of discussion. And to go ahead and try and change the town administrator, to Frank's point of view is, he put a budget out there based on a lack of guidance. And anytime you try and change his numbers without having a backup from above, it's difficult. We find it difficult to work with the town administrator because we're supposed to go through the selectmen to get to the town administrator. This is the first time, 5 years ago we said, no matter what we do, here's your increases in benefits, here's your increase in taxes, sooner or later we're going to come to the brick wall. I've enjoyed the journey for 5.5 years, sometimes. But the reality is we've arrived at the brick wall. I truly believe the school department knows that. I've looked at Derek's budget. Derek clearly understands we've arrived. The last time we met with the selectmen, she was chairing it because yes, said that yes, they had not addressed the budget issues over the last several years, and that they were preparing to do that. Some of our frustration has been just that. We do know some of the problems, whether it's water pollution, whether it's capital planning, whether it's, we know what the issues are. But until sometimes the selectmen are going to sit down and say, what are the real issues that you perceive in the police department, the water treatment facility, the bus issue, then a meaningful discussion can be had regarding where the priorities are. Reluctantly, we've come to that. It's taken us 5.5 years. We've arrived. And if you're not a department head right now, doesn't realize how desperate it is, if you're not someone who's in charge of negotiating with the town for your employees, and don't realize that there are going to be some big changes, I'm satisfied where we are. I'm not satisfied with the speed that we took to get here. But I think now, at least on the municipal side, and the selectmen, town administrator, we're there. I think they're going to make the tough decisions, and I think they're going to engage us in conversation.
Okay, what's all right?
Mr. McDonald?
Well, I'd really love to agree with you, but I don't.
That's okay.
Because it wouldn't be the first time. I believe that most of us have arrived. I don't believe our selectmen have arrived. I think they're still preparing to deal with the budget. And at this point, they shouldn't be preparing, they should be dealing with it. Say what you wanted to say about Mark Andrews, but he gave them a tool that was a very good tool, that little dollar bill. I've heard several comments to the fact that, well, that's not their, that's day to day. It's not day to day. It's well within their rights and their job duties to issue directives and policies to guide the town administrator. And budget is one of the biggest issues they have to face. Now, I don't even know if they've even reached a consensus on what they think is important in this town. Now, I'm pretty sure Derek has, but at this point, they should be so well immersed into the budget so that Derek has guidelines, and we should ask him, point blank, does he have guidelines? If he doesn't have guidelines, that means our selectmen aren't doing their job. And that's my opinion, and I don't think they are. We're at the brick wall, they're still trying to figure out how to get to the brick wall.
I'm gonna again interject something, okay? Like I am always so bashful to interject, to take over the conversation. I don't want people to get the impression that we're bashing the Board of Selectmen. That's not my intent. My intent is that the only people who have the power to do anything, if nothing else, we're pleading with them to become actively involved in this and not wait until the last minute and say, well, I don't have time to really propose solutions or get caught up on this or anything else. And I hope, that people understand that, or that they will understand it, especially anyone who sees this particular meeting. We're asking the Board of Selectmen, you have the power, please step up because you're the only ones that can. We do not want a confrontation. I don't think the school in any way wants a confrontation. Right? We want somebody else to get involved in this budgeting process. The people will have the power to do it. And they're not, you know, over the years, it's been politically expedient not to be involved. Mrs. Brown?
I just want to make a comment here because, you know, I'd like to think we're working together, and we are working together, most of us are. But again, Bonnie has no problem on this committee coming out and saying, hey, I don't have experience in that, can you enlighten me? I don't have any problem to turn into finance guy here, and over there, to ask them, hey, can you help me out with this? Why can't, and I'm not going to go there and say all the selectmen need to step up to the plate and say, hey, look, we're in a mess. Why can't you financial people help us out, help us understand? Now, some are doing so, some are doing so. We're in a mess, and they have to be more forthcoming and get the financial answer. I don't pretend to know how to fix my car, but I bring it to the best guy I know to fix it. It's not a weakness. We all have to step up to the plate and know to go where to go to the answers. I don't care if it's not politically correct. I don't care what it is. It's the right thing to do, and that's what we have to send the message to the viewers. Come up to the plate. Finances, Mr. Rabinovich he's the educator. He knows the stuff. There's no doubt about it. But the financial people that can help you, they're not coming and asking us.
Yep.
They're not asking us for our help. And we've thrown it out to everyone. We've thrown it out to the Board of Selectmen. We've thrown it out. Well, you know what? This is a crisis that you have to be 100% committed. And I honestly can say that one Board of Selectmen person is 100% committed, but others can't be for some reason or another. Then don't be on the board if you can't commit yourself 100%. You might not make the right decision, but ask the right people.
Yep.
When you lose hair, you shave your head so you get baldder.
You know, and I'm just going to close. I'm not going to say another word about that. But you know, in my business, it was always, hey, when I hired somebody, I always tried to hire somebody that's smarter than I was. That always made good common sense. You don't feel threatened by it. You don't feel threatened by asking people. The more you know, the better you get a handle on it. And it's the Board of Selectmen's job to get a better handle on it.
Mrs. Donahue?
I appreciate my chairwoman's passion and expertise, but you're implying that we actually have answers, and we don't have answers. We know what all the problems are. We're looking for help and guidance in trying to solve those problems.
Make the time.
I appreciate that too. I want to refer back to what Mr. McDonald said. I actually did ask. I asked the town administrator at our last meeting, point blank, and I sent an email to our Board of Selectmen, very pointedly asking. I may have been out of order in doing so, but I was reviewing the budget. I was out of order in doing so. I'm sorry.
Policy's only 2.5 years old.
Finger comes off today.
However, I asked point blank.
She wasn't here when we settled that.
She was here.
I wanted to know what instructions have been given to the town administrator, because he could not elaborate them. And I have a few hours when we have no power to go through the budget and start deciding on the parameters that we were all talking about. But I don't want to go making my own opinion about what's important and what's not if other people have put forth where we're going. And that is the exact frustration that everyone here is feeling. We don't know where to start because we don't know what the priorities are.
True.
So why are we even bothering to do it if we don't know what direction we're supposed to be taking this in? We could be rolling up our sleeves and start finding solutions and answers and finding out that that's not what the Board of Selectmen, the current administration, is thinking. don't understand how to solve this communication gap.
So what's our first step and when?
I think we need to send a letter to the Board of Selectmen explaining to them,
That'll take 3 weeks.
okay, well,
Now I got an email response about 10 minutes.
Don't talk about this.
maybe go to their meeting.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I would suggest that we do some thinking as to what we feel are the priorities. And that we then go to, if we can reach a reasonable conclusion, we then go to the Board of Selectmen and say, this is what our thoughts are, and ask for their thoughts, if they're different. But I think we need something to get priorities going. And the best thing I could think of is to come up with hours and suggest that to the selectmen.
Can I argue with it?
Can you what?
Can I argue with it?
I'm getting tired now.
I'm tired.
Okay, here's the sense.
You've lost me.
This will
We're going
be
on
easy.
circles here.
This,
Yeah.
no, well, let's make it simple. We are advised, they are decide. We need them to decide before we can advise. If we go into there and we're advising when they haven't even made a decision on what's important, then I think we're missing the boat here. The boat is, they need to decide and give directives to the town administrator, therefore giving us directives, and now we can advise. Because before we go in and advise, we're overstepping our bounds as a committee, number one. Yes, we are, because we are here to advise. We're not here to dictate or determine what's going to be
And you
priorities.
don't think it's right to advise someone who's trying to make a decision?
We don't know that they're making a decision. What we know at this point is they haven't made a decision on the priorities of this town. So how can you advise when you don't even know what their priorities are? That is the
We do know, the budget's there,
I think the actual.
the budget's there.
That's not.
It is true, the budget's there, and if we feel the budget's wrong, that's our priority. We're gonna go in there and say, we feel that this can be done, that can be done, this can be done. The problem's right in front of you, the budget.
Okay, let's make
Problem.
it simple. You go and, you sit in front of the selectmen and you tell me what their priorities are in this budget. You can't look in this budget and see priorities because this is not the finished budget. So
No, you're wrong, I'm sorry.
You cannot
I
see it.
disagree with you.
you
I'm sorry.
cannot. I've seen too
Way
many
to
budgets
disagree
in the
with
last 30 years of my life.
How can you say you can look at that budget and not see there's a problem?
Because there's a
We have a
2.5.
tremendous deficit.
That's not the problem. The problem is, you look at this budget, it has a $2-point-something million deficit built
Correct.
in. So
Problem.
something's going to have to change, and that's where their decision comes in.
We gotta advise them.
First up in the budget, there's no $2.5 million deficit in that budget. That budget's balanced.
Okay, well, now that we have the new number.
Now the problem is we know that there's, just like the
Okay,
banks.
whatever, you know
Some
what.
offshoot number, you know. And we're coming, things are happening very, very fast. Like I said, the town administrator he's off meeting with the superintendent. They're trying to come up with things. And, it's been brought up a few times by the board of selectmen, well, maybe they should be meeting with the finance committee, maybe they should meet with the school committee. Yeah, okay. And what should the agenda be? It should be, well, right now, I think we decided here, and we need a meeting with them to discuss the priorities.
There you go.
Not next month, not, I'm looking and saying, absolutely as fast as possible. We need to sit and talk. Right? What we cannot do is let the budget continue on, where the pride of authorship gets deeper and deeper rooted. Okay? We need to do what Sam said. We need to get into a situation where we can sit, talk it out, provide what we feel is sound advice. Right? And then they can go from there and they, our expectation is after the conversation that they would set the priorities. Still can't tell them to do it.
No.
Right? Still can't tell them to do it. But at least we'll have an opportunity maybe to help them find those priorities. Okay? Or to understand the consequences of moving things up and down the scale.
Well, let's request.
What are the unintended consequences? Sometimes the more brains you have, maybe the better. comment?
I think individually, we should each come up with our own list of recommendations as if we were Pericles and we were running this place as to what we
Feel
would
free to
do.
bring your own notes if you do it, but, you know, no, I would
And
want,
then you
I
have
would
a,
not want to see a combined document put together, because then now we're sitting with our pride of authorship. All right, I think everybody should, because we're all old and we forget things, we should all write down our thoughts and have them available, but I would severely fight the idea that we put together a document.
no, not a document, but individually, we come in as a group and say, here, if I was looking at this and I was able to do it, these are the steps, these are the things that I would cut to get down to $2.5 million less spending than we.
I think that's part of the conversation that goes on in the committee. And if you really go back and look at Robert's rule says, do you know that you cannot officially in a committee move the question? Because the duty of the committee is to discuss, and to hear all opinions. That's why you can't move the question. Right? I think that's the same thing. We're in the same situation. If we come into a meeting like that, we're going to want to hear what everyone has to say.
A laundry list, individual laundry list of things we would do.
I would agree. Everybody should come prepared, obviously. No spectators is what you're saying. You're saying come do your homework and come with your ideas on paper so you don't forget them. Don't get lost in the
So then
conversation.
should we suggest a meeting? How do you feel that we should get together? What's the best way?
They
to
keep
get together?
suggesting that we should have a meeting. I think we should say we want it as soon as possible.
Okay, then let's do it. Let's get it done.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Now you have a job.
Let's get it done.
I don't care if we do it at their meeting or our meeting either.
Yes.
No.
I'm concerned about the format. I am concerned about where we meet, and, you know, I like those board of directors rooms that have no tables.
Yeah.
Everybody has to sit around the chair and the idea, these are barriers. These are barriers. All tables and podiums and everything are barriers. So we met someplace that we want to sit in some environment where we can have a round table. Or, you know, even this up, where, you know, everybody's mixed in and just go through it. Right, you go back and you start reading some of the other locations, and you got one group here and one group there, you go back into the priority. Yes, ma'am.
I would generally agree that this is a priority meeting as soon as possible, in a comfortable environment. But also, I mean, listening to some of this talk about, we should look at what our priorities are, let them look at their priorities are, and if, we could present our priorities to such that it really harkens back to 5 years ago, and I think even snoozing David over there would agree with me, when our town warrant for town meeting had 3 rows of numbers listed: Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and Town Administrator's budget. And I would really, really hate to ever see that happen here, because we have tried so hard to follow the charter, and it says it is the Town Administrator's budget.
Under the guidance of the board.
Under the guidance of the Board of Selectmen. Okay?
Which means they set the priorities.
Exactly. And whatever, guidance they need either before, in the middle, or at the end, we should try to provide.
Yeah, I agree.
But still, try to, at all costs, go into that town meeting as we worked all the bugs and this is what we like. If at that point we don't like it, then yes, we have the first right to,
I would not say at all costs, but that's certainly the much
that's the
preferred
goal.
way.
Yes,
Yeah.
the goal.
When would we like to meet with them? Soon.
Tomorrow.
Next week.
I just can't be available on Tuesday.
They have other business they have to deal with on Tuesdays anyways,
Yeah.
all right?
I would get a feeling from them as to what would be convenient, because I think they want to they should realize that
May
we're
1st.
interested in supporting
May 1st
them.
would be a good day for them.
No, after the election.
Yeah.
May 1st would be the right day for them.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear that.
I tend to agree. I think our suggestion is it should be sometime next week, if it has to be on Saturday. On Saturday,
Yeah.
whatever it needs to be. Pardon?
Next Saturday.
No, I'm saying if it has to be, so we have to ask them. Tuesday nights, they couldn't possibly do it, there's so much to cover on their own agendas. It's Saturday, 2 nights in a row might be tough for some of them, but we probably need to ask Steve what.
My hope is that
Chairman, that's a
their thought process is ahead of us, and they're saying, this is where we're going, this is how we're going, just so that we all get in the same program. I hope they're.
Where would you suggest we meet?
That's sarcasm.
Where are the suggestions?
Yeah.
Right here,
Right here, okay.
right here. For some room like this, I mean, just, they keep saying they would like to meet with us, well, let's put it into action. And the agenda should be simple. The budget. Okay, let's go back to the agenda, real quick. Any other new business?
Not new business, but perhaps an action item that was brought up earlier tonight. It probably, I don't know that it's beneficial, but we should probably at least make the attempt to have some members of this finance committee to reach out to the finance committees of the other towns involved in Upper Cape.
Through the town
As
administrator?
Mr. Sweat suggested. No, finance committee to finance committee is what they were saying, because they talk the school committee to the school committee, they talk administrator to administrator.
Falmouth Sandwich.
Do we talk to, do any of us have any connections at the moment with any other finance committees?
No time like the present.
Well, I do, but they're not in the Upper Cape area, so. And let me tell you how heartbreaking it is to talk to people from Lexington and Wayland about their budget problems.
So we get Falmouth Sandwich, Bourne,
And Marion.
Marion.
Because I get the Bourne newspaper. Bourne got hit for $200,000 as well, and they were shocked, and it's knocked them into the state of confusion on their budget as well, even though they have $10 million.
Even though they have that.
Even though they have $10
they have $10
million
million in
reserves.
stabilization, yeah.
All right, so Bourne might be looking to see what can be, they're shaky on it. And I understand that Falmouth has some problems too. They're not very happy about it as well.
Do you want
So
one of
those two in particular would be ones that we could probably reach out to. And they're probably having the same conversation we are. Who else could they reach out to? So
Is it possible to say that we would put a cap on the number of students that can go there?
I don't think you can do that, but I know what you can do is if 3 of the towns say that they do not find that the budget is appropriate,
It's booked,
I understand that.
it goes back to
but
negotiation.
It's not a town meeting though, not just on the finance committee.
If we don't come out a winner,
Well, the
Other
influence may
towns.
also be, when they set the attendance numbers, how many people they can bring in. It seems to me they keep growing, or they're shifting, or I don't know, I don't know, we would have to go back and they would probably know better than we would.
So how do
One
we
good reason to
contact
talk to them.
I'll reach out to one,
Our
if
reps.
somebody else wants to reach out on another one, or?
I'm trying to make, I'll do that for you, I'll try to get in touch with the 2 committee members and get them in here as fast as possible.
yeah.
And try to get hold of the superintendent and get him in before anyone else votes.
Okay,
And I should contact them
let me-
right away.
I'll go down to Bourne Town Hall and I'll find out who we can talk to from the Bourne Finance Committee.
We could pretty much go online.
Online.
and
Oh, yeah?
and see
Okay.
See what it is.
See who
All
we
right.
can reach out to. I mean,
I'll take one, you take one, somebody take one?
I'll take,
I've got 2 people who were on the board,
what town?
but they are now.
I'll
What do we got?
I'll take Marion.
So
Well, that leaves me with who, Falmouth?
Falmouth's a big one.
Falmouth's a big
Oh,
one.
okay, I'll take it.
Falmouth might have more luck with, because apparently they just,
I'll try
Marion is
Falmouth.
gonna bat their eyelash and say no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, so.
All right.
Let me try,
What's Falmouth?
does anybody want sandwich?
Sandwich on it?
Yes, sandwiches on it too. I'll do sandwich and Bourne, or unless somebody else wants to do it for, I'd be
You
happy.
sandwich and more, you do Falmouth and I'll do Marion.
Okay, and I'll reach out to these calls and let's see what we can come up with, see if we can set up a meeting with the
Well,
towns.
even an informal call to find out, if you're
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah,
Let's start there.
I got Falmouth.
okay.
Any liaison reports?
None.
No liaison reports? Approval of the meeting minutes for February 6th?
I don't have any
February
problem.
6th? They were sent out.
Teachers.
All right, so the regular session? Written down, all right, so we'll postpone that until later. Told Mr. McDonald's to take good notes.
Oh, I was supposed to take notes tonight?
Yes.
Can I borrow your tape later?
Kelly's not here.
That raises, okay. Bob, if we could, all right, I talked to Kelly and she asked if we could do that. And I said, since we're doing it with the board of selectmen are doing it, I didn't see any reason why she might not be able to take your, if you don't mind, take your video and do our minutes for us.
The objective of doing this is to get your message out in any possible way.
Okay. Well, no, I'm saying, can we use,
And that's a possible way of getting it, making sure they're accurate and getting it out.
Wait, are you looking at me when you're talking about accuracy?
No, I'm just saying, this is, if this can be used as a resource,
if we
go
could get
to
a
it.
copy, if we could get a copy that we could give to our clerk, that would be.
In fact, as you know, I've been providing the FinCom with a copy
Yes, we have.
right along.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me do that directly to her first.
So that would alleviate the necessity of her sitting through the meetings with us. She would still have to incur that time, so listening to the tape, so that she could do her minute taking off of that.
I don't want to get to that point.
No,
I don't want to get to that point. I really don't want to get to that point, because the other side too is, don't forget, she's working with conservation and she's on a part-time basis.
right.
All right, that becomes a problem. That could become a problem.
No, I do.
The other side too is, I mean, if she doesn't understand something, she could say, oh.
Oh, okay,
Inside of
that's a
now.
good point, but it's still gonna be the same amount of time for her to review that tape as it is for her to sit in this room. That's not a
Yes.
time savings.
And she's doing this on an exception basis because she couldn't make it tonight. She's in Florida. And the question was, do we try to get Larry to take shorthand, which we figured that out. And she said, no, well, if you, if you're willing to do it, I
It's a
can always
good
do
use
it
of
off the tape.
technology.
Yeah.
I can tell you who was here.
So, next meeting date,
Next week?
you want to meet next week?
I think we
Supposed to
should.
Board of Selectmen meeting with us.
Yeah.
Do we want to make it tentatively next week if we can get the right guests here? The right guests, in my mind, would either be the board of selectmen and meet with them in joint session, or if we can get the representatives, the town's representatives to the Upper Cape, and that would be the other individuals we would want to see.
Right.
And we talked about inspectional services and Board of Health. Maybe we could have them back in again. All right, water pollution control, I think it's too soon until we have you guys go to tell me when you think you can do it, we get the right people involved. The police budget might be too soon too, right? So,
I was gonna suggest that we make it into some burnout, because we are gonna have a lot of hard work when it comes down to the actual facts. So, every week meeting, we're just gonna be voicing our frustration, and just adding to it.
No,
No,
that's
no,
not-
no, it's not very good.
That'll be the other thing, we'll take a hard look at the agenda. It wasn't, my intent tonight wasn't to voice frustration, because I covered some of these even last night, but to really sort of discuss out what we want to do next in these various areas and get some action plans in place. We should start seeing some warrant articles here shortly.
What say you want, Madam Maureen?
Actually, I have met with town council and the town administrator over the last 2 weeks. We've worked on the standard articles that generally come before town meeting on a routine basis, trying to get them pulled together, knowing that the town administrator may be out a few days when he becomes a new dad, and the town council will be leaving for a trip. Time is short to work on them, so I have been pushing. I will see tomorrow whether they're available and we can work some more, but they are. There is a realization that it needs to get done, and it needs to get done sooner rather than later.
Anything else before we take a motion to adjourn? No liaison reports? Sam, you got something?
So moved to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Donna wants to say she's having